Don't touch him, Taehyung. Jungkook's voice cut through the hospital room like a locked door slamming shut. Jimin lay pale under the white blanket, one hand trembling against the sheets, his lips barely moving, as if he wanted to say something but couldn't. Taehyung froze at the foot of the bed, his eyes red, his fingers still holding the small paper bag he had brought for Jimin. RM stood behind him, confused. Jin looked like he had stopped breathing. Suga's jaw tightened and J-Hope whispered, "Jungkook, what are you doing?" But Jungkook didn't look away from Taehyung. He stepped closer, blocking him from Jimin completely, and said the words no one expected to hear. "Get out of his room before I call security." Before we go deeper into this story, tell me honestly in the comments, if you were in that room, would you defend Jungkook or Taehyung? And write where you're watching from, because tonight's episode starts with one question no one in BTS was ready to answer. Why did Jungkook protect Jimin from Taehyung like he was protecting him from an enemy? The hospital room went silent, but it wasn't the peaceful kind of silence. It was the kind that comes right before something breaks. Taehyung stared at Jungkook like he had just been slapped in front of everyone. "You don't get to decide who stays beside Jimin," Taehyung said, his voice shaking. Jungkook didn't blink. "I do when the person standing beside him is the reason he ended up here." That one sentence changed everything. RM stepped forward and demanded, "What are you talking about?" Jin immediately turned to Taehyung, searching his face for any sign that Jungkook was wrong. Suga looked at Jimin, and that was when he noticed it. Jimin's hand had tightened around Jungkook's sleeve, not Taehyung's, not anyone else's, just Jungkook's. And even though Jimin's eyes were half closed, a tear slipped down the side of his face. Taehyung saw it too. For the first time that night, he didn't argue. He just whispered, "Jimin, please tell them I didn't know." But Jimin didn't answer. He only turned his face away. Hours later, when everyone thought Jungkook had gone too far, he did something in secret that left every member speechless. And the truth he uncovered was worse than anything they imagined.
The first person to move was Jin. He stepped between Jungkook and Taehyung with both hands raised, not because he understood what was happening, but because he knew Jungkook's eyes. He had seen Jungkook angry before, during rehearsals, during arguments, during the kind of exhaustion that made everyone say things they regretted later, but this was different. This was not anger that came from pride. This was anger that came from fear. Jungkook's shoulders were stiff, his breath was controlled, and his hand stayed close to Jimin's bed as if he expected someone to pull Jimin away at any second. Jin looked from him to Taehyung, then to Jimin, and his voice dropped low. "Nobody is calling security. Not until somebody explains what happened." Taehyung swallowed hard, still standing near the door with the paper bag hanging from his fingers. Inside it was a bottle of water, a soft scarf, and the small snack Jimin always asked for after late practice. It looked innocent, too innocent. Jungkook's eyes flicked to the bag and his expression sharpened. "Don't put that near him." Taehyung's lips parted. "It's just food. I said don't put it near him." Finally stepped forward, his face tense, trying to hold the room together with the kind of calm that usually worked. "Jungkook, you need to stop throwing accusations and talk clearly." Jungkook let out a bitter laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Clearly. Fine." Jimin collapsed after drinking something that came from Taehyung's dressing room. The sentence hit the room like a glass breaking on tile. J-Hope's face drained of color. Suga's eyes snapped toward Taehyung. Jin looked shocked, but Taehyung looked destroyed. "No," Taehyung whispered immediately. "No, that's not true." Jungkook turned toward him fully now, and for the first time everyone saw the phone in his hand. He had been gripping it so tightly his knuckles were white. "Then explain why your assistant was the last person seen near Jimin before he collapsed. Explain why the bottle had your initials on it. Explain why Jimin tried to call you 3 times and you didn't answer." Taehyung stared at him, speechless. His throat moved like he was trying to form a sentence, but nothing came out. RM looked at Taehyung sharply. "Is that true?" Taehyung's eyes filled, but he didn't deny it fast enough. That pause was enough to make the air shift. Even Jin, who always protected all of them, took half a step back. Jimin's monitor beeped steadily beside the bed, calm and cruel, as if the machine had no idea it was counting seconds inside a friendship that was falling apart. Jimin slowly opened his eyes. Everyone turned toward him at once. His gaze moved past Jin, past Suga and J-Hope, then stopped on Taehyung. Something painful crossed his face. It was not hatred. That would have been easier. It was disappointment. Taehyung saw it and took a step forward without thinking. "Jimina, please." "I swear I didn't." Jungkook moved so fast the chair beside the bed scraped loudly against the floor. "One more step and I swear I'll drag you out myself." "Jungkook," Arm snapped, but Jungkook didn't back down. Taehyung's hurt suddenly turned into anger. "Who are you to talk to me like that? You think you're the only one who cares about him?" Jungkook's answer came cold and immediate. "No. I think I'm the only one who noticed he was begging for help." That silenced everyone again. Jimin closed his eyes as if the words hurt more than the IV in his arm. Suga looked at Jungkook slowly. "What do you mean begging?" Jungkook looked down at Jimin's hand, still curled weakly around the edge of his sleeve. His voice changed. It became quieter, almost dangerous because of how controlled it was. For 2 weeks, he kept saying he was fine. Headaches, dizziness, losing his balance. Forgetting choreography, he knew better than any of us. Everyone thought he was overworked. Everyone told him to rest, drink water, sleep earlier, but he wasn't just tired. Arm's face tightened. Jin covered his mouth with one hand. J-Hope whispered, "Why didn't he tell us?" Jungkook looked at them with eyes that accused all of them, not just Taehyung. Maybe because every time he tried, someone told him not to create problems before the comeback. The room went still in a new way. That was not just about a bottle anymore. That was about all of them. It was about the schedule, the cameras, the pressure, the unspoken rule that no one broke down when the group needed to look perfect. Jin's eyes turned wet. He said softly, stepping closer, "Is that true?" Jimin didn't answer. He opened his mouth, but his voice came out broken. "I didn't want everyone to worry." Taehyung shut his eyes like that sentence stabbed him. Jungkook leaned closer to Jimin immediately. "Don't talk. You don't have to explain yourself." But Jimin's gaze stayed on Taehyung, and the room felt like it was holding its breath for whatever he might say next. "I called you," Jimin whispered. Taehyung's face collapsed. "I know you didn't answer. I was angry." That confession landed harder than any denial. Taehyung looked down, ashamed, and his fingers tightened around the paper bag until it crumpled. "We fought earlier. I thought you were calling because you wanted to continue the argument. I didn't know you were sick. I didn't know you were scared." Jungkook's expression darkened. "And that makes it better?" Taehyung looked at him, tears finally spilling. "No, it makes me guilty, but it doesn't make me a monster." Jungkook stepped closer, voice low. "Then why did he whisper your name before he passed out like he was afraid of you?" Taehyung stopped breathing. Jimin's eyes widened slightly, and for the first time, fear flashed across his face, not because of Taehyung, but because Jungkook had said too much. RM saw that fear and immediately knew there was another layer. He turned to Jimin carefully. "Jimin, what happened between you and Taehyung?" Jimin looked away. Jungkook's jaw clenched. "Don't ask him right now." RM's voice hardened. "We have to ask because if something happened, we can't pretend it didn't." Jungkook turned on him. "That's exactly what everyone has been doing." The words were unfair and true at the same time, and nobody knew how to defend themselves. Taehyung slowly put the paper bag on the small table by the door, not near Jimin, not close enough to start another fight. Then he looked at Jimin with a broken expression. "I'll leave if you want me to, not because Jungkook said it. Because you do." Jimin's lips trembled. The answer should have been simple. If Taehyung was innocent, Jimin could say stay. If Taehyung was guilty, Jimin could say leave. But the truth sat somewhere worse, in the kind of place where love, guilt, fear, and secrets all looked the same. Jimin closed his eyes. "Please leave." Taehyung flinched like the words physically hit him. Jin turned away. J-Hope lowered his head. RM looked devastated. Suga stared at the floor, his expression unreadable. Jungkook didn't look satisfied. If anything, he looked more hurt, because getting what he wanted meant Jimin had just confirmed something no one wanted to believe. Taehyung nodded once, barely holding himself together. He walked to the door, but before stepping out, he looked back at Jimin. "I didn't know about the bottle. I didn't know about any of this, but I know who did." Jungkook's head snapped up. "What did you say?" Taehyung's hand tightened on the doorframe. His voice dropped. "If you want to blame someone, start with the person who told me Jimin was trying to ruin us." Then he left, and the door closed behind him, leaving one terrible question inside the room. Who inside their circle had turned Jimin's pain into a threat? Nobody spoke for several seconds after Taehyung left. The door looked too normal, too clean, too silent for something that had just split the group in half. Jimin's breathing became uneven, and Jungkook noticed before anyone else. He leaned over him, lowering his voice until it was almost a whisper. "Hyung, look at me. Breathe slowly." Jimin tried, but his chest shook. Jin moved to call the nurse, but Jimin grabbed weakly at Jungkook's sleeve again. That one small movement made Jin stop. It also made RM notice something he had ignored for too long. Jimin was not just sick, he was afraid of being left alone. I'll get the doctor, J-Hope said, already moving, but Suga caught his arm. Wait. Too many people rushing will make him panic. J-Hope looked like he wanted to argue, but then he saw Jimin's face and stopped. JUNGKOOK sat on the edge of the chair, not caring about rules, not caring about the way the others watched him. He kept one hand near Jimin's, not holding it too tightly, just enough to remind him someone was there. You're safe, he said. Jimin's eyes filled again. I'm not. The honesty of it broke something in the room. JUNGKOOK's face changed first. The cold anger cracked, and underneath it was pure fear. Stepped closer slowly. Jimin, what does that mean? Jimin shook his head. Not now! JUNGKOOK looked at RM, warning him without words. But RM wasn't only the leader in that moment. He was someone realizing that leadership had failed in the worst possible way. Then, tell us what we can do right now. Jimin looked exhausted. His lips were dry. His eyes moved toward the hallway, toward the door Taehyung had walked through. Don't let them blame him publicly. JUNGKOOK's head turned sharply. After everything, you're protecting him? Jimin looked at him with tired sadness. I'm protecting all of us. Suga let out a slow breath. There's already something online, isn't there? Everyone looked at him. Suga took out his phone, his expression darkening as he scrolled. A staff account posted a blurry photo from the ambulance entrance. They didn't name Jimin, but fans are already guessing. Taehyung was not in the hallway when RM opened the door. He was not near the elevator, not in the family waiting area, not beside the vending machines where he usually disappeared when he needed to breathe. Security said he had gone downstairs alone, ignoring the manager who tried to stop him. That was all RM needed to hear before his calm finally cracked. Alone? He repeated, his voice dangerous. The guard nodded nervously. He said he needed air. Jin pressed his palm against his forehead. Of course he did. Of course he went alone after being kicked out like that. JUNGKOOK flinched but said nothing. J-Hope had stayed with Jimin, and Suga stood beside RM with his phone still in his hand, quietly saving screenshots before anything could be deleted. The hallway outside Jimin's room felt colder now. Hospital lights washed everything in white, making every face look guilty. Turned to JUNGKOOK. You stay here. JUNGKOOK immediately shook his head. No, yes, I'm the reason he left. Exactly, RM's voice lowered. And if cameras catch you chasing him now, they'll turn it into something worse. JUNGKOOK looked like he hated that RM was right. His hands curled into fists. Then bring him back. RM's anger softened just enough for the fear underneath to show. I will. Jin looked between them. I'm going too. Suga held up his phone. I'll stay near the service entrance. If someone is feeding the press, they're probably not standing with the fans. They're standing where staff move. Nodded. For once, nobody argued with Suga. They split without another word. JUNGKOOK returned to Jimin's room, but he did not sit. He stood near the window, staring at the hospital entrance far below. Cameras had started gathering outside the gate. Fans too. Some were crying, some were filming. Some were already choosing sides based on 5 seconds of blurry footage and a headline written by someone who knew exactly how to make pain look like scandal. Jimin watched JUNGKOOK from the bed. You're shaking, he said softly. JUNGKOOK looked down at his own hands, then hid them in the pockets of his hoodie. I'm fine. Don't lie to me. The words were weak, but they still carried the old Jimin, the one who could see through him even when JUNGKOOK tried to become stone. JUNGKOOK turned back slowly. You asked him to leave. Jimin's eyes lowered. I know. Did you mean it? That question sat between them like a knife. Jimin took a long breath. In that moment, yes. JUNGKOOK's face tightened. And now? Jimin looked toward the door. Now I don't know. JUNGKOOK closed his eyes briefly, and when he opened them again, the hurt was raw. He ignored your calls. Because we fought. He let someone make you feel alone, so did all of you. JUNGKOOK went still. Jimin's voice broke, but he kept going. You were the only one who noticed the fear. Kook. But you also turned it into rage. RM turned it into schedule problems. Jin turned it into worry without questions. Hobi turned it into comfort. Yonggi turned it into silence. Tae turned it into his own hurt. And I turned it into pretending I was okay. JUNGKOOK couldn't answer. There was nothing to defend. Jimin looked exhausted, but his eyes were clearer now, maybe because the truth had finally started moving. That's why this worked. Whoever did this knew all of us. Downstairs, RM and Jin found Taehyung outside near the side exit, not the main gate. He was sitting on the low concrete wall behind the hospital, shoulders hunched, face hidden in his hands. He looked smaller than he ever did on stage. Jin slowed first, stopped a few steps away. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Taehyung said, without looking up, Jin's face twisted. Taehyung laughed once, broken and empty. That means no. RM walked closer. He's scared. Taehyung finally lifted his head. His eyes were swollen. Of me? Hesitated, and that hesitation hurt more than a yes. Taehyung nodded slowly, looking away. I said something to him earlier. Before the recording, I was angry. I thought he was hiding things from me. Jin sat beside him. What did you say? Taehyung rubbed both hands over his face. I told him if he kept acting strange, people would start thinking he was the problem. I told him I was tired of protecting him from rumors when he wouldn't even trust me with the truth. RM's jaw tightened. Why would you say that? Taehyung's voice cracked. Because someone told me he was planning to expose something that could damage us. They said he had been meeting legal counsel alone. They said he didn't trust the group anymore. They made it sound like he was going to save himself and leave us behind. Jin stared at him. Who told you that? Taehyung looked up at RM. Minseok. RM's expression changed immediately. Jin noticed. Who is Minseok? RM's voice was low. One of the senior coordination managers. He handles private schedule security. Taehyung nodded. He said JIMIN was emotionally unstable and that I should keep distance until the company handled it. But when I saw JIMIN, I was angry. I thought he had been avoiding me. I thought. He stopped, shame cutting him off. Jin's voice softened. You thought your best friend was betraying you. Taehyung nodded, tears falling again. And then he called me 3 times. I stared at the phone and didn't answer because I wanted him to feel what I felt. He pressed a hand against his mouth. How do I live with that? RM looked toward the hospital lights. By coming back upstairs and telling him the truth. Taehyung shook his head immediately. JUNGKOOK won't let me near him. JUNGKOOK doesn't get to decide everything. He does when JIMIN holds onto him like that. Jin sighed, pain in his eyes. Tae, this is bigger than jealousy. Taehyung looked at him sharply. You think I don't know that? His voice rose, then broke. You think I'm jealous because JUNGKOOK stayed. I'm jealous because JIMIN was scared and he didn't call me until it was too late. I'm jealous because I used to be the person he called before anyone else. And tonight I became the person he needed protection from, sat on Taehyung's other side. The leader mask was gone now. He looked tired, guilty, human. Then help us find out who turned you into that. Taehyung wiped his face and pulled out his phone. There's more. Jin and RM both looked at him. Taehyung opened a message thread with Minseok. The first few messages were ordinary schedule updates. Then one message appeared from yesterday evening. Jimin is asking questions again. Do not engage emotionally. He may record conversations. Another message followed. If he approaches you, keep him away from your room. We found something in your area that may be used against you. Jin's stomach dropped. Found what? Taehyung scrolled further, then stopped at a photo Minseok had sent. It showed a small medicine bottle on Taehyung's dressing room table. The label was blurred, but the implication was clear. Arm's face went cold. That wasn't yours? Taehyung looked horrified. I've never seen it before. Jin leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Why didn't you show us this immediately? Taehyung's voice became small. Because Minseok said if I showed anyone, it would look like I was blaming Jimin. RM took the phone from him carefully and sent the screenshots to Suga. Almost instantly, Suga replied with one line, Do not move, I found him. Stood so quickly, Taehyung flinched. Found who? RM looked at the message again, his eyes hard. Minseok is still inside the hospital. Upstairs, JUNGKOOK's phone buzzed with the same update. He read Suga's message and his whole body went still. Jimin saw his face. What is it? JUNGKOOK didn't answer right away. Outside the room, footsteps approached. Not hurried, not nervous, controlled, professional. A knock came at the door. Before JUNGKOOK could move, the handle turned. A man in a black staff jacket stepped inside with a calm smile and a folder under his arm. Jimin see, Minseok said softly. We need to talk before this becomes worse. JUNGKOOK stepped in front of the bed. You just made it worse by coming here.
Minseok stopped just inside the doorway, and the calm on his face did not break. That was what made JUNGKOOK's skin crawl. Innocent people looked confused when they were accused. Guilty people sometimes looked scared. But Minseok looked prepared, as if every possible reaction in the room had already been predicted and filed away. J-Hope stood from the chair beside Jimin's bed, his usual warmth gone. You shouldn't be here without RM or the doctor. Minseok gave him a polite nod. I understand the concern. But the company needs JIMIN SSI to approve a temporary privacy statement. It will protect him. JUNGKOOK looked at the folder. Put it on the table and leave. Minseok's smile thinned. I'm afraid it requires direct confirmation. Jimin's face had gone pale again. JUNGKOOK noticed immediately. He's not signing anything. I didn't say signing, Minseok replied smoothly. Just confirming that tonight's incident was caused by exhaustion and personal stress, not any external factor. J-Hope's eyes widened. JUNGKOOK's voice dropped. You're asking him to lie while he's in a hospital bed. Minseok turned to him with measured patience. I'm asking him to prevent a scandal that could damage everyone he loves. That sentence hit Jimin exactly where it was meant to. His eyes flickered. His fingers tightened against the blanket. JUNGKOOK saw it and stepped closer to Minseok. Don't talk to him like that. Minseok ignored him and looked past his shoulder. JIMIN SSI, you understand how fast rumors move. If people start blaming members, the public will tear the group apart. A simple statement ends it. JIMIN's breathing became shallow. J-Hope moved toward the call button, but Minseok noticed. No need to involve hospital staff. This is only a conversation. JUNGKOOK laughed once, cold and sharp. Then you won't mind having it when RM gets here. For the first time, something flickered in Minseok's eyes, not fear, irritation. RM is emotional right now. Funny, JUNGKOOK said. You told TAEHYUNG the same thing about JIMIN. Minseok's smile disappeared. JIMIN looked at JUNGKOOK, alarmed. Kook! JUNGKOOK didn't stop. You told him JIMIN might record conversations. You told him to stay away. You sent him a photo of a bottle planted in his room. Then somehow JIMIN drinks from a bottle with TAEHYUNG's initials and collapses. J-Hope stared at Minseok like he was seeing a stranger remove a mask. Is that true? Minseok's voice stayed even. You are making serious accusations based on panic and incomplete information. JUNGKOOK took one more step. Then complete it. The room felt dangerously small. JIMIN tried to sit up, but pain crossed his face. J-Hope immediately rushed to him. Don't move. Minseok's eyes shifted to JIMIN. This is exactly why we need to control the story. He needs rest, not conflict. JUNGKOOK turned furious. You don't get to use his condition as a weapon. Minseok's gaze sharpened. And you don't get to destroy 7 careers because you're too attached to think clearly. That was the wrong thing to say. JUNGKOOK's face went still in a way that made J-Hope step between them. But before JUNGKOOK could answer, the door opened again. RM walked in first, followed by Jin, TAEHYUNG, and Suga. The room became packed with tension. TAEHYUNG stopped when he saw JIMIN, and the pain on his face was immediate, but he did not step closer. He stayed by the wall, as if respecting the boundary JIMIN had drawn. RM looked at Minseok. You're not authorized to speak to him alone. Minseok turned calmly. I came to help. Suga lifted his phone. No. You came because I found your second device near the service entrance. The silence changed shape. Minseok's jaw tightened almost invisibly. Jin looked at Suga. Second device? Suga's expression was dark. A staff phone logged into a media tip account. Same account that posted the ambulance photo. J-Hope whispered, No way. RM's eyes turned colder than anyone had seen in years. Did you leak JIMIN's hospitalization? Minseok looked around the room, calculating. Be careful. Accusing staff without proof can become another scandal. Suga smiled without warmth. Good thing I don't accuse without proof. He held up the phone again. Security footage shows you leaving the restricted hallway 12 minutes before the photo went online. The device was found in a trash bin near the service elevator. You forgot one thing. Minseok said nothing. Suga continued. Auto backup was on. Jin's face hardened. TAEHYUNG's hands curled at his sides. RM took one slow step toward Minseok. Why? For a moment, Minseok's professional mask stayed in place. Then he looked at JIMIN, and something ugly slipped through. Because JIMIN SSI was going to ruin months of negotiation. JUNGKOOK's entire body tensed. JIMIN closed his eyes as if he had expected this, but still wasn't ready to hear it. RM's voice was low. What negotiation? Minseok looked at him with a bitter smile. The one none of you had the courage to understand. The company is under pressure. Investors want control. Schedules are being restructured. Image rights are being consolidated. Medical issues create financial risk. If one member starts questioning clauses, lawyers get involved. Investors panic. Deals collapse. Jin stared at him in disgust. So you threatened him? I warned him. TAEHYUNG stepped forward, voice shaking with anger. You used me. Minseok looked at him almost pityingly. You were easy. TAEHYUNG stopped as if struck. Minseok continued, cruel now because the mask was already cracking. You care too much about being trusted. JUNGKOOK cares too much about protecting him. RM cares too much about keeping peace. Jin cares too much about preventing pain. Hosok cares too much about making everyone smile. Yoongi notices everything but waits too long to speak. And JIMIN, his eyes returned to the bed. JIMIN cares too much about everyone else to save himself. Nobody moved. The truth was too precise, too intimate. This man had not just managed schedules, he had studied them. JUNGKOOK's voice came out quiet. What was in the bottle? Minseok looked at him. Nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, just enough to worsen dizziness in someone already exhausted. enough to make a collapse look like stress. J-Hope made a sound of horror. Jin looked ready to hit him. RM's face went pale with controlled rage. TAEHYUNG whispered, "You poisoned him." Minseok shook his head. "Careful with words, it was not meant to kill him." That was when JUNGKOOK moved. RM caught his arm before he reached Minseok, and Jin grabbed the other side, both of them holding him back as JUNGKOOK struggled for the first time that night with no control left. "You touched him," JUNGKOOK said, voice breaking. "You touched him and made him think it was T." Minseok's eyes flicked to JIMIN. He was never supposed to know for sure. JIMIN opened his eyes. His face was pale, his body weak, but his voice, when it came, was clear enough to stop everyone. "I knew." Minseok froze. JUNGKOOK stopped struggling. TAEHYUNG looked at JIMIN with shock. JIMIN slowly turned his head toward Minseok. "Not everything, but I knew someone was setting T up. That's why I called him. I wanted to warn him." TAEHYUNG's face crumpled. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. "You didn't answer." TAEHYUNG covered his mouth, devastated. JUNGKOOK looked away because even his anger could not protect anyone from that. RM's voice became deadly calm. "Security is coming, legal is coming, and you will not speak to him again." Minseok looked at the door, then back at them, and for the first time real fear appeared. But then his expression shifted into something else. A final card. "If I go down, the documents go public." RM stopped. Minseok's smile returned, small and poisonous. Every clause. Every medical report. Every private conflict summary. Every recording the company kept to manage member risk. Including the one where Jimin says he doesn't trust TAEHYUNG anymore. TAEHYUNG went still. Jimin's eyes widened in panic. JUNGKOOK turned slowly toward Minseok, and the room understood at once that this was no longer only about justice. It was about whether saving Jimin would destroy the one bond he was already terrified he had lost. The word recording stayed in the air longer than Minseok's threat. Nobody moved because nobody knew which part hurt more, the fact that private conversations had been recorded, or the fact that Jimin's weakest words had been turned into a weapon. TAEHYUNG looked at Jimin like he was waiting for the ground to disappear under him. "You said that?" he asked quietly. Jimin's eyes filled, and the guilt on his face answered before his voice could. JUNGKOOK immediately stepped closer to the bed, but this time he didn't speak for him. Jimin needed to answer. Everyone knew it. Jimin swallowed, his voice rough from exhaustion. "I said I didn't know if I could trust you with the contract issue." TAEHYUNG stared at him. "That's not the same as saying you don't trust me anymore." Minseok's smile widened just enough to be cruel. "Editing changes meaning, that is the point." RM turned on him. "Shut your mouth." Minseok lifted his hands slightly, pretending innocence even while standing in the middle of the damage he created. "I am only explaining the situation you are in. If I am blamed, the public will not receive one clean truth. They will receive pieces, angry pieces, emotional pieces. They will choose what hurts the most." Suga's eyes narrowed. "You're not powerful enough to release anything if we lock access now." Minseok looked at him. "You think I came here without insurance?" The room went cold again. Jin took one step toward him. "What do you want?" "A statement," Minseok said immediately. "Tonight was caused by exhaustion. There was a misunderstanding between members, no staff involvement, no contract discussion. No internal dispute. Jimin rests. TAEHYUNG stays quiet. JUNGKOOK apologizes publicly for overreacting. RM signs off before morning." JUNGKOOK let out a humorless laugh. "You want me to apologize for protecting him from you?" Minseok looked at him calmly. "I want you to do what you always do when Jimin's name is on the line. Take the blame." That hit too close. JUNGKOOK stopped smiling. Jimin turned his head sharply toward him, panic rising in his eyes. "No," Minseok noticed it. Of course he noticed it. "See. He knows you would." JUNGKOOK didn't look at Jimin. His face had gone unreadable again, and that scared Jimin more than rage did. Rage meant JUNGKOOK was fighting. Silence meant he was thinking about sacrificing himself. RM saw it too. "No one is making a statement yet." Minseok's expression sharpened. "Then the first file releases in 1 hour." Jin's voice cracked with anger. "You're threatening people you worked with for years. I am protecting a larger structure." "No," Suga said flatly. "You're protecting yourself." Minseok looked at him, and for the first time there was dislike in his face. "You always think you're the only one in the room who understands power." Suga put his phone away slowly. "No, I understand cowards. They love calling fear strategy." Minseok's jaw tightened. Then hospital security appeared at the door with one of the senior managers behind them, but RM raised a hand before anyone touched Minseok. "Wait!" Everyone turned to him, stunned. JUNGKOOK's eyes flashed. "TAEHYUNG." RM didn't look at him. His attention stayed locked on Minseok. If he has a dead switch, dragging him out blindly may trigger it. Minseok smiled again, pleased that RM understood the rules of the trap. "Smart!" RM's face didn't move. "Not smart enough to leave you standing here." He turned to the manager. "Take his access badge, take every device he has on him, keep him in a private security room with legal present. No outside calls, no internet. If anything releases, I will know it came from somewhere already scheduled." Minseok's smile faded. "You can't detain me." RM stepped closer, voice low enough that only the room could hear. "You walked into a patient's hospital room and pressured him for a statement after admitting you manipulated medical risk. We are being very kind by not letting JUNGKOOK decide what happens next." Minseok glanced at JUNGKOOK, and something like fear finally crossed his face. Security moved in. Minseok didn't fight, but as he passed the bed, he looked at JIMIN one last time. "You should have stayed quiet. You were always loved more when you were easy to protect." JUNGKOOK lunged half a step, but JIMIN's voice stopped him. "Kook!" One word, weak shaking, but enough. JUNGKOOK froze. Security took Minseok out and the door closed. For a second, everyone just stood there, breathing like survivors after an explosion. Then TAEHYUNG spoke. "JIMIN." His voice was barely there. JIMIN looked at him, but the distance between them felt longer than the room. "I'm sorry," TAEHYUNG said. "I know that doesn't fix it. I know I don't deserve you answering me right now. But I need you to know I didn't want this." JIMIN blinked slowly. "I know." The answer should have helped, but it didn't. TAEHYUNG looked even more broken. "Then why did you tell me to leave?" JIMIN's mouth trembled. "Because when I saw you, I remembered calling you and hearing nothing. I remembered thinking maybe Minseok was right. Maybe I had become a problem even to you." TAEHYUNG shook his head, tears slipping again. "Never. But you believed him before you believed me." TAEHYUNG had no defense. The truth cut cleanly because it was simple. He had believed a manager's warning over JIMIN's silence. He had believed fear because fear sounded organized. JUNGKOOK looked away, jaw tight, because he wanted to hate TAEHYUNG for it, but part of him knew all of them had done the same in different ways. RM had believed schedule pressure. Jin had believed forced optimism. J-Hope had believed comfort could cover pain. Suga had believed waiting for enough evidence was safer than speaking too soon. JUNGKOOK had believed anger was the same as protection. JIMIN had believed silence would save everyone, and Minseok had turned every one of those beliefs into a weapon. RM rubbed his face with both hands, suddenly looking exhausted. "We need rules," Suga nodded. "No one speaks to press, no one posts, no one answers unknown calls. All devices get checked for tracking or scheduled leaks." Jin looked at JIMIN, "And he needs rest." JIMIN tried to smile, but it failed. "I don't think rest is going to fix this." "No," JUNGKOOK said quietly, "but I will." Everyone looked at him. The words sounded too calm, too final. RM immediately stiffened. "What does that mean?" JUNGKOOK took his phone from his pocket. His thumb hovered over the screen. "Minseok thinks he knows what I'll do. He thinks I'll take blame because of JIMIN." JIMIN's eyes widened. "JUNGKOOK, don't." JUNGKOOK finally looked at him, and the softness in his eyes hurt worse than anger. "I'm not apologizing." He looked at RM. "I'm going hunting." Suga's gaze sharpened. "For what?" JUNGKOOK's voice dropped. "For the original files, the full recordings, the unedited truth." "And whoever helped him." RM stepped forward. "You are not doing this alone." JUNGKOOK's mouth tightened. "Then don't slow me down." TAEHYUNG moved from the wall. "I'm coming." JUNGKOOK's eyes snapped to him. "No." TAEHYUNG didn't flinch this time. "He used me. He used my room, my name, my fight with JIMIN. If you think I'm going to stand here and cry while you clean up my mess, you don't know me at all." JUNGKOOK stared at him, anger rising again. "This is not about your pride." TAEHYUNG stepped closer, voice low and shaking. "No, it's about JIMIN waking up thinking I abandoned him. I can't undo that. But I can help stop the person who made sure he felt that way." The room held its breath. JUNGKOOK looked ready to refuse, but then JIMIN spoke. "Let him help." JUNGKOOK turned to him, hurt flashing across his face. "You trust him?" JIMIN's eyes moved to TAEHYUNG. "Not the same way as before." TAEHYUNG swallowed hard. Jimin continued, voice weak but honest. But I want to. That sentence broke Taehyung more than any accusation could. JUNGKOOK stared at Jimin, then looked away like accepting it physically hurt. RM stepped between them before the silence became another fight. Then here are the rules. Nobody moves alone. Nobody confronts anyone without backup. Jimin stays protected here. Jin and Hobei stay with him. Yoongi checks the devices and contacts legal. Taehyung and JUNGKOOK come with me. JUNGKOOK immediately objected. I'm not leaving Jimin. Jimin reached for him and JUNGKOOK leaned close instantly. Kook, Jimin whispered, if you stay here because you're scared, he wins. JUNGKOOK's eyes searched his face. And if something happens while I'm gone, Jimin gave the smallest smile, sad and brave. Then come back fast. JUNGKOOK closed his eyes, fighting himself. Then he nodded once. Not because he wanted to, because Jimin asked. Before leaving, he bent close and spoke low enough that only Jimin could hear. I'm not letting them turn your pain into evidence against you. Jimin's fingers brushed his wrist. Don't let them turn your love into guilt either. JUNGKOOK froze. For a second, the whole room disappeared except for those words. Then he pulled away, turned toward the door, and walked out with RM and Taehyung behind him. But as soon as they entered the hallway, JUNGKOOK received a message from an unknown number. No name, no profile picture, just one sentence. If you want the original recording, come without Taehyung. JUNGKOOK stopped so suddenly Taehyung almost walked into him. RM noticed the change before he saw the phone. What happened? JUNGKOOK stared at the message, his face unreadable. Taehyung leaned slightly, trying to see, but JUNGKOOK turned the screen away by instinct. That small movement said more than any argument. Taehyung saw it and stepped back. It's about me, isn't it? JUNGKOOK didn't answer fast enough. RM held out his hand. Show me. For a second, JUNGKOOK looked like he might refuse, not because he didn't trust RM, but because the message had been designed to isolate him, and some part of him had already started calculating whether isolation was worth the risk. Then he remembered Jimin's words. Don't let them turn your love into guilt. He handed RM the phone. RM read the message once and looked up, expression hard. They want you alone, Taehyung's jaw tightened, and away from me. JUNGKOOK took the phone back. Maybe because you're involved. Taehyung flinched, but this time he didn't explode. Or because they know you still think that. RM looked between them. Both of you stop. That message is not truth, it's pressure. JUNGKOOK's eyes stayed on Taehyung. Pressure works when it touches something real. Taehyung's face hardened through the hurt. Then say it clearly. You still think I could have helped Minseok. I think you were angry enough to be used. That's not the same thing. It was enough to hurt him. Taehyung stepped closer. And for a second the hallway felt like the hospital room all over again. RM moved between them immediately. No, not here, not now. A nurse at the far end glanced over and RM lowered his voice. Whoever sent this may be watching. Don't perform the division they want. JUNGKOOK exhaled sharply and turned away. Taehyung looked down, swallowing whatever he wanted to say. RM took charge because if he didn't, their emotions would do the work for the enemy. We respond together. JUNGKOOK looked back. No, yes, they said without Taehyung. And you think obeying anonymous threats is strategy? JUNGKOOK's eyes flashed. I think getting the original file matters. RM's voice became colder. And I think keeping you alive, free, and not framed matters too. That finally made JUNGKOOK pause. RM softened slightly, just enough to reach him. You're not thinking like a hunter right now. You're thinking like someone who would walk into fire if Jimin's name was written inside it. JUNGKOOK's mouth tightened. Maybe that's what this needs. Taehyung spoke quietly from behind RM. No. That's what they're counting on. JUNGKOOK turned, ready to reject him, but Taehyung lifted both hands. I'm not saying that as an excuse. I'm saying it because I know how it feels. Minseok said Jimin was betraying me, and I believed it because it hurt in the exact place I was weakest. This message is doing the same thing to you. JUNGKOOK stared at him. The truth was annoying because Taehyung had no right to be right, but he was. RM took JUNGKOOK's phone and typed a reply before JUNGKOOK could stop him. Send proof first. He pressed send. JUNGKOOK glared at him. Hyung, if they have the file, they can prove it. If they refuse, it's bait. The reply came less than 10 seconds later, a short audio clip, 9 seconds. JUNGKOOK's hand tightened around the phone as RM played it on low volume. Jimin's voice came through, tired and strained. I don't know if I can trust Taehyung with this. Not when he gets scared and turns everything into silence. The hallway went still. Taehyung's face lost color. Jungkook looked at him before he could stop himself. Taehyung didn't look angry. He looked devastated. "That's real," he whispered. RM took the phone back and replayed it, listening carefully. "It's cut," Jungkook nodded, "but his voice is real." Taehyung looked down at his hands. "He said that before tonight?" Nobody answered. They didn't have to. Jungkook's expression was conflicted, and that conflict hurt Taehyung almost as much as the clip. "Play it again," Taehyung said. RM hesitated. Play it." RM played it again. Taehyung closed his eyes and listened to the 9 seconds like punishment. When it ended, he opened his eyes and something in him had changed. The grief was still there, but underneath it was focus. "I know where that was recorded." Jungkook's head snapped up. "What?" "The echo, the air conditioner click. That's not a conference room." "That's Studio C's side lounge." RM frowned. "You're sure?" Taehyung nodded. "We used it during vocal recording last week. The vent makes that sound every few seconds." Jungkook listened again. This time he heard it too, faint beneath Jimin's voice, a small metallic tick. "When would Jimin have been there?" RM asked. Jungkook answered. 2 nights ago, after recording." He went back for his in-ear case. Taehyung's eyes sharpened. "Then whoever recorded it was in the lounge when he spoke to someone." "Who?" RM asked. Jungkook's face shifted. "Me." Taehyung looked at him. "You." Jungkook nodded slowly, memory returning in painful pieces. "Jimin called me after hearing the staff conversation. I went to meet him. He was panicking. He said he didn't know who to trust, and I asked about you because he kept avoiding your name." Taehyung looked like breathing had become difficult. "And he said that?" Jungkook's jaw clenched. "He said more." RM looked at him. "What was the full sentence?" Jungkook closed his eyes, forcing himself back into the moment. Studio C dim lights. Jimin sitting on the couch with his knees drawn close, pretending he wasn't shaking. The smell of cold coffee. The sound of that broken air conditioner. Jimin whispering, "I don't know if I can trust Taehyung with this. Not when he gets scared and turns everything into silence. But I want to tell him, Kook. I hate that I'm scared of losing him more than I'm scared of the company." Jungkook opened his eyes. Taehyung had stopped moving completely. RM's expression softened with pain. "The clip removed the part where he still wanted to trust you." Taehyung's lips trembled. "They cut out the love and left the fear." Jungkook looked at him, and for the first time that night, his anger toward Taehyung lost some of its certainty. Not disappeared, just cracked. RM typed another message. "Full file, location, now." The reply came almost immediately. "Service parking level B2, Jungkook only, 10 minutes." RM cursed under his breath. Jungkook took 1 step toward the elevator. RM grabbed his arm. "No." Jungkook pulled free. "We need that file. We need you not trapped." Jungkook looked at him, voice low. "If they release the edited clip, T becomes the victim, I become the aggressor, and Jimin becomes the unstable one who accused his members. The full file matters." Taehyung stepped forward. "Then I'll go." Jungkook looked at him sharply. "They asked for me." "Exactly, so they won't expect me." RM shook his head. "No one is going alone." Taehyung's eyes stayed on Jungkook. "You don't trust me anyway. Use that. Let them think you refused because of me. Let me go through the staff stairwell. You and RM take the elevator and draw attention." Jungkook stared at him. "Why would I let you walk into a trap?" Taehyung's answer came quiet but firm. "Because tonight I already walked into one and dragged Jimin with me. This time I want to walk in with my eyes open." RM studied him. There was risk in it, too much risk, but there was also logic. The sender expected Jungkook's desperation, not Taehyung's guilt turned into courage. Jungkook looked away, fighting the answer. "If something happens to you, Jimin will blame himself." Taehyung smiled sadly. "He already does." That made Jungkook look back. Taehyung's voice softened. "You're not the only one who knows how to protect him." For a second, they were not rivals in a hospital hallway. They were 2 people who loved the same wounded person in different ways and had both failed him in different ways. RM made the decision. "We do it together, but split paths." T takes stairs with Suga on call. Jungkook and I take the elevator and make ourselves visible. We keep audio recording on. We share live location with Jin. If anyone loses signal, we pull back. Jungkook hated every word except the part where they moved. "Fine." Taehyung nodded. RM called Suga, explained quickly, and Suga's answer was immediate. I'm watching internal security feed from the admin office. Don't ask how. T, keep your phone camera pointed down but recording. JUNGKOOK, don't punch anyone unless I say please. Nobody laughed, but somehow Suga's dry voice kept them grounded. Before they separated, JUNGKOOK looked at TAEHYUNG. If this is another setup, TAEHYUNG met his eyes. Then don't save me first, save the truth. JUNGKOOK didn't answer. The elevator doors opened behind him. RM stepped in. JUNGKOOK followed. TAEHYUNG moved toward the stairwell alone, phone recording in his hand, heart pounding so hard he could hear it over the hospital hum. As the stairwell door closed behind him, a new message appeared on his own phone from Minseok's number. You were always the easiest member to break. TAEHYUNG stared at it, then whispered into the empty stairs, not tonight. The service stairwell smelled like disinfectant dust, and rain carried in from some lower exit. TAEHYUNG moved down one flight at a time, keeping his phone angled low like Suga instructed. His breathing sounded too loud. Every step echoed. He hated that echo because it reminded him how alone he was, even though Suga's voice was in his ear, low and steady. 2 floors down. No one visible on the camera by B1. Keep moving, TAEHYUNG whispered. Do you see JUNGKOOK and RM? Elevator just past B1. They're faster than you. Don't rush. TAEHYUNG almost laughed. Even now, Suga sounded like they were discussing tempo in a studio, instead of walking into blackmail. Hyung, TAEHYUNG said quietly, if the clip leaks before we get it. It won't. You don't know that. No, but I know fear makes people sloppy. Minseok got arrogant. Whoever is helping him might too, TAEHYUNG swallowed. Do you think JIMIN really wants me there when this is over? Suga was quiet for half a second. I think JIMIN wants to stop being forced to choose who hurt him less. That answer hit TAEHYUNG hard enough to slow him. Keep moving, Suga said, softer now. You can apologize later. Earn the chance first. TAEHYUNG nodded even though Suga couldn't see his face clearly. Okay. In the elevator, JUNGKOOK stood beside RM with his hands buried in his hoodie pockets. The small space felt too bright, too slow, too controlled for the amount of rage inside him. RM watched the numbers descend. When we get there, you don't react first. JUNGKOOK didn't look at him. You keep saying that like I'm a dog. I keep saying it because they're counting on your reaction. JUNGKOOK's mouth tightened. Everyone keeps telling me what they're counting on. RM looked at him. Because they are counting on the parts of us we never learned how to hide. JUNGKOOK finally turned. Is that what you tell yourself? That this happened because we're human? RM's face showed pain, but he didn't avoid it. No, I tell myself this happened because someone chose to exploit that. But I also know I missed it. JUNGKOOK looked away. The elevator passed B1. RM continued, voice quieter. You were right earlier. I acted like a leader after he collapsed. JUNGKOOK's jaw worked. I shouldn't have said it like that. Maybe not, but it was true enough to hurt. The elevator doors opened before JUNGKOOK could answer. B2 was dimmer than the rest of the hospital, reserved for staff vehicles and service access. Concrete pillars divided the space. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The air was damp, carrying the smell of tires and metal. RM stepped out first. JUNGKOOK followed, eyes already scanning every corner. Suga's voice came through JUNGKOOK's earpiece. Camera 3 has a blind spot behind Pillar D. The meeting point from the message is near the old ambulance bay. I see one figure, hood up. Not Minseok, RM murmured. Copy. JUNGKOOK's gaze found the figure at the far end, smaller than Minseok, nervous posture, hands moving too much. Staff, he asked. Suga answered, looks like temporary assistant, maybe temp 3. JUNGKOOK's eyes darkened. The message sender. Don't rush, RM warned. They walked forward together. The figure noticed them and stiffened. I said JUNGKOOK only, a young man's voice said. He sounded scared, not powerful. RM stopped a few meters away. Then you shouldn't have come to a hospital full of cameras. The assistant looked around quickly. You don't understand. I can't be seen talking to all of you. JUNGKOOK stepped forward. Then talk fast. The assistant flinched. I didn't know JIMIN SSI would collapse. JUNGKOOK's face became dangerous. RM put a hand against his chest, holding him back without looking away from the assistant. Name. Doyun, the assistant said. His voice shook. Lee Doyun, I was temporary coordination staff. Minseok Sunbi told me to send messages, move bags, pass schedule updates. I thought it was just internal management. JUNGKOOK's voice was low. You moved the bottle. Doyun's eyes filled with panic. I moved a bag, I didn't know what was in it. Whose bag? RM asked. Doyeon hesitated. Jungkook took another step and the assistant quickly answered. Taehyung SC's dressing room bag. But it wasn't from there originally. Minseok gave it to me near the studio and told me to place it in the room so it looked like it had always been there. Jungkook's hands curled. RM's voice stayed controlled. Do you have proof? Doyeon reached into his jacket. Jungkook tensed, but Doyeon pulled out a small flash drive. Full audio, screenshots, instructions. I copied them because I got scared. RM didn't move to take it yet. Why contact Jungkook and tell him to come alone? Doyeon's face twisted with shame. Because Minseok said Jungkook SSI would actually do something. He said RM SSI would manage, Suga SSI would investigate, Jin SSI would comfort, J-Hope SSI would panic quietly, Taehyung SSI would fall apart, but Jungkook SSI would act. Jungkook's eyes hardened. So you used that too? I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't help Jimin breathe. Doyeon lowered his head, tears falling. I know. RM stepped forward slowly and held out his hand. Give it to me. Doyeon looked around, terrified. If I give it to you, I need protection. Minseok isn't the only one. RM froze. Jungkook's eyes sharpened. Who else? Doyeon's lips trembled. Someone from legal, someone from investor relations, and one person inside the creative team who has access to member footage. RM's face went pale with anger. Names? Doyeon shook his head quickly. They're on the drive, I can't say it here. Suga's voice suddenly cut in, urgent. Movement near Pillar DT, where are you? Taehyung's voice came through, breathless. B2 side stairs. I'm behind the ambulance bay. Jungkook's head snapped toward the blind spot. What movement? Suga's tone sharpened. Black jacket, not hospital security. Moving toward Doyeon. RM reached for the flash drive. Give it now. Doyeon placed it in RM's palm. At the same moment, a loud metallic crash echoed from the blind spot. Doyeon jumped. Jungkook turned. A man in a black cap rushed out from behind Pillar D, heading straight for RM's hand. Everything happened fast. Jungkook shoved RM back. The man grabbed for the flash drive, but Jungkook caught his wrist and slammed him against the pillar. The man grunted and twisted, stronger than expected. RM secured the flash drive in his pocket and grabbed Doyeon, pulling him away. Suga's voice snapped through the earpiece. Hospital security moving now. T, stay back. But Taehyung didn't stay back. From the side stairwell, he saw a second figure moving behind Jungkook, something dark in his hand. Taehyung didn't think, he ran. Jungkook! Jungkook turned half a second too late. Taehyung hit the second man from the side, both of them crashing into a parked service cart. Pain shot through Taehyung's shoulder, but he held on. Jungkook's eyes widened. The first man used Jungkook's distraction to break free and run. Jungkook instinctively moved after him, but RM shouted, Do. We have the drive. Jungkook stopped, breathing hard, torn between chase and protection. The second man shoved Taehyung off and bolted toward the exit. Security flooded in seconds later, too late to catch the first, but fast enough to block the second stairwell. Taehyung sat on the floor, gripping his shoulder, face pale. Jungkook reached him before he realized he had moved. Are you hurt? Taehyung looked up, stunned by the concern in Jungkook's voice. I'm okay. Jungkook's eyes scanned him quickly, angry again, but different now. You idiot, Suga told you to stay back. Taehyung winced. He had something in his hand. Jungkook looked toward the cart and saw it, not a weapon, a phone. The screen was cracked but still lit. A live call had been running. RM picked it up carefully with a cloth from Doyeon's dropped bag. The caller ID was hidden. From the speaker, distorted by damage, a voice spoke once before disconnecting. They have the drive. Release the second clip. Doyeon made a strangled sound. No. RM's phone buzzed, then Jungkook's, then Taehyung's. Upstairs in Jimin's room, Jin's phone buzzed too. Jimin saw Jin's face change as he read the notification. What is it? Jimin asked. Jin tried to hide the screen, but Jimin already knew. The second clip had gone public. This time it was not Jimin's voice. It was Jungkook's from that same night in Studio C, cut into a sentence sharp enough to destroy him. If Taehyung is the problem, I'll remove him myself. In the parking level, Taehyung read the caption under the clip with trembling hands. Jungkook allegedly threatened to remove Taehyung before hospital confrontation. Jungkook stared at the screen, expression unreadable. RM closed his eyes. The full truth was in his pocket, but the lie had reached the world first.
By the time they returned upstairs, the hospital had turned into a sealed storm. Security blocked both ends of the corridor. Managers whispered into phones. Legal staff arrived with faces so serious they looked like they were attending a trial instead of a medical emergency. Every few seconds, another phone vibrated. Another headline. Another fan theory. Another edited clip spreading faster than any denial could catch. JUNGKOOK walked ahead of everyone, but his steps slowed when he reached JIMIN's door. For the first time that night, he looked afraid to enter. TAEHYUNG noticed it. RM noticed too. Neither said anything. Inside the room, JIMIN was sitting slightly upright with Jin's help, his face pale but alert. J-Hope stood near the window, wiping his eyes before anyone could see. Suga had returned from the admin office and was already connecting RM's flash drive to a secure laptop, his face set in the calm expression he wore when panic had to wait its turn. When JUNGKOOK entered, JIMIN looked at him immediately. Not at RM, not at TAEHYUNG, at JUNGKOOK. "Is it true?" he asked. JUNGKOOK stopped. Everyone knew which clip he meant. JUNGKOOK's throat moved. "It's cut." JIMIN's eyes searched his face. "But did you say it?" Silence. TAEHYUNG stood behind him, still holding his injured shoulder. RM closed the door. JUNGKOOK looked down. "Yes." JIMIN's face changed. Not shock. Pain. Quiet, exhausted pain. "Why?" JUNGKOOK looked up quickly. "Because I was scared. Because you were shaking in that studio. And you kept saying you didn't know if you could trust him, and I thought he had hurt you. I said if TAEHYUNG was the problem, I would remove him from the situation myself. Not from your life, not from the group, from the danger. They cut it." JIMIN looked at TAEHYUNG and back at JUNGKOOK. "But you meant it tonight." JUNGKOOK didn't deny it. That honesty made the room hurt. "Yes." TAEHYUNG looked away, jaw tight, but he stayed silent. JIMIN's voice trembled. "Do you know what scares me the most? Not Minseok, not the clips, not even the contract." JUNGKOOK stepped closer. "What?" JIMIN's eyes filled. "That everyone keeps deciding what protection means without asking me." The words landed harder than any accusation. Jin lowered his head. J-Hope covered his mouth. RM looked at the floor. Suga's fingers paused above the keyboard. TAEHYUNG closed his eyes. JUNGKOOK looked like the sentence had gone straight through his chest. JIMIN continued, each word, quiet but clear. Minseok decided silence protected the company. RM decided calm protected the group. Jin decided pretending I was okay protected me from worry. Hobie decided kindness protected me from breaking. Yonggi decided evidence protected the truth. TAE decided distance protected his heart. And you, his voice cracked, you decided anger protected me. JUNGKOOK couldn't speak. Jimin looked at him through tears. But nobody asked what I needed. JUNGKOOK's face broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a small collapse in his eyes that made him look younger than he had all night. What do you need? The room went still. Jimin took a shaky breath. I need the truth out. The full truth. Not the clean version. Not the version that saves everyone's image. The truth. RM lifted his head. That could expose the contract issue. Then, expose it. Jin looked shocked. Jimin, Jimin turned to him, tired but firm. I'm done being protected by lies. Suga looked at the laptop screen. The drive is encrypted, but not well. Give me time. RM stepped closer. If we release everything, we don't control what happens after. Jimin gave a sad smile. We never controlled it. We just let people like Minseok convince us control was safety. TAEHYUNG finally spoke, voice rough. What about the clip of you saying you didn't trust me? Jimin looked at him. Release the full one. TAEHYUNG's eyes reddened again. Even if people hear that you were scared of me? They should. TAEHYUNG flinched. Jimin's voice softened. Not because I want them to hate you, because I want them to know fear can exist even when love is still there. That sentence nearly destroyed TAEHYUNG. He nodded, unable to answer. JUNGKOOK looked at Jimin, something shifting in him. He had spent the whole night trying to stand between Jimin and pain. Now Jimin was asking to walk directly through it. "And my clip?" Jungkook asked quietly. Jimin looked at him. "Release the full one too. It will still sound bad." "Then let it sound bad." Jungkook's eyes widened slightly. Jimin's voice became gentler, but not weaker. "You did hurt TAE tonight. You hurt me too. But the full truth shows why. It doesn't erase it. It just stops them from using it alone." Jungkook nodded slowly, accepting the kind of accountability that love could not protect him from. RM looked around the room. "Then we make one statement. Not company written. Ours. We say Jimin is receiving treatment after being exposed to a harmful substance under investigation. We say manipulated clips are being released to distort private conversations. We say full context will be provided to authorities. And, where safe, to the public. We say no member is leaving, no member is being blamed without evidence, and no one speaks for Jimin except Jimin." Jimin looked at him, and for the first time that night, some of the old trust flickered. "Thank you." RM looked ashamed. "I should have said that earlier." "Yes," Jimin whispered, "but say it now." Suga suddenly leaned closer to the laptop. "I'm in." Everyone turned. The screen showed folders. Audio, messages, photos, internal memos, medical risk assessments, private notes, names. Too many names. Suga's expression darkened as he opened a folder labeled Member Risk Response. "This is not just Jimin." RM moved behind him. Jin, J-Hope, TAEHYUNG, and Jungkook gathered closer. Jimin couldn't see from the bed, but he saw their faces change one by one. "What is it?" he asked. Suga opened a document and his voice went flat. "They have files on all of us. Emotional triggers, conflict patterns, pressure points." J-Hope whispered. "Pressure points?" Suga scrolled slowly. RM, responsibility guilt. Jin, eldest duty. Me, withdrawal and delayed confrontation. Hobie, public optimism dependency. TAE, abandonment sensitivity. Jungkook, protective impulse toward Jimin. Jungkook's eyes went cold. Suga scrolled further, then stopped. The room seemed to freeze around him. RM noticed. "Youngie?" Suga didn't answer right away. His eyes moved to Jimin, then to Jungkook, then back to the screen. "There's a final category." Jin stepped closer. "What category?" Suga's voice dropped. "Attachment leverage." Jungkook's stomach turned. Taehyung's face tightened. Jimin gripped the blanket. Suga opened the file. At the top was a private note written by Min Seok. Subject Park Jimin responds most strongly to perceived abandonment by Kim Taehyung, an emotional risk to Jeon Jungkook. Subject Jeon Jungkook can be redirected through threats involving Park Jimin. Recommended containment method. Separate them, then force one to sacrifice reputation for the other. No one spoke. The words were not just analysis. They were a blueprint, a plan, a map of how tonight had been built. Jimin looked at Jungkook, horror spreading across his face. "They wanted you to take the blame." Jungkook stared at the screen. "Yes," Taehyung whispered, "and they wanted me to look like the reason." RM's voice was almost a growl. This wasn't damage control. This was behavioral control. Suga scrolled to the bottom of the file, and suddenly his face went still in a way that scared everyone. "There's a scheduled release." Jin leaned in. "For what?" Suga clicked it open. A countdown appeared. 43 minutes. The file title loaded slowly, and when it appeared, Jungkook felt every drop of blood leave his face. It read, "Final clip. Jimin requests member separation." Jimin stared from the bed, unable to breathe. "I never requested that." Suga's face was grim. "They don't need you to have requested it. They just need enough pieces to make it sound like you did." Jungkook turned toward the door. RM grabbed his arm. "Where are you going?" Jungkook's voice was calm again, but this calm was different. It was the kind that came after fear turned into decision. "To find the server before that countdown ends." Jimin's voice shook. "Jungkook." He stopped but didn't turn. "You said you needed the truth out." "Not if you disappear into another trap." Jungkook looked back at him. His eyes were wet, but his voice didn't break. "Then don't let me go alone." Taehyung stepped forward immediately. "I'm coming." RM nodded once. "All of us are." Jin looked at Jimin. "Not all. Someone stays." J-Hope moved to the bed. "I stay." Jimin reached for his hand, but his eyes stayed on JUNGKOOK. Promise me you won't sacrifice yourself. JUNGKOOK looked at him for a long second. I promise I'll come back with the truth. Jimin's face tightened because it was not the same promise. JUNGKOOK knew it. So did everyone else. But before Jimin could stop him, Suga turned the laptop around and showed one more thing. The server location was not at the company building. It was not at the studio. It was inside the hospital's temporary media control room, 2 floors above them, where someone was still logged in under a name no one expected to see. Kim TAEHYUNG. For 3 seconds, nobody said TAEHYUNG's name. They all just stared at the screen, as if the letters might rearrange themselves into someone else if they waited long enough. Kim TAEHYUNG. Logged in. Active session. Temporary media control room, 2 floors above Jimin's hospital room. The same hospital where Jimin was lying pale and exhausted. The same hospital surrounded by cameras. The same hospital where Min-sok had walked in, smiling like he still owned the room. JUNGKOOK turned slowly toward TAEHYUNG, and this time his face did not explode with anger. It emptied. Somehow, that was worse. TAEHYUNG looked from JUNGKOOK to the laptop, then back again, his mouth slightly open, his injured shoulder forgotten. "No," he said, barely above a whisper. "No, that's not me." JUNGKOOK didn't speak. RM did. "TAE, where is your tablet?" TAEHYUNG blinked, confused by the question. "My tablet?" "Your personal tablet. The one you use for sketches, notes, music drafts." "Where is it?" "Tablet." TAEHYUNG's face changed. He looked down at his hands, then at his bag near the chair. He moved fast, too fast, almost stumbling as he grabbed it and pulled everything out onto the floor. Charger. Mask. Notebook. Earbuds. Empty medicine pouch. A folded hoodie. No tablet. His breath caught. "It was in here." JUNGKOOK's jaw tightened. Jin crouched down beside the scattered items. "When did you last see it?" TAEHYUNG pressed both hands to his head. "At the studio. No, wait, in the van. I had it before we came to the hospital. I was looking at messages. Then when Jimin collapsed, everything happened so fast." Suga's fingers moved across the keyboard. "The login is not just using your name. It's using a device token tied to your tablet." TAEHYUNG looked like he might be sick. "So they stole it." JUNGKOOK finally spoke, voice flat. "Or you lost it at the perfect time." TAEHYUNG stared at him, pain flashing across his face. "You still think I'm doing this?" JUNGKOOK's eyes were dark. "I think every time we find a door, your name is on the handle." Jimin's voice cut through the room, weak but sharp. "Stop." JUNGKOOK turned immediately. Jimin was sitting up more now, one hand gripping J-Hope's wrist, his face pale with effort. "Don't do this again." JUNGKOOK stepped toward him. "Jimin? No, listen to me." Jimin's breath shook. "This is the same pattern. They put Tae's name somewhere. You react. TAE breaks. I panic. Everyone loses time. That's exactly what they want." TAEHYUNG looked at Jimin like those words were the first breath he had been allowed to take all night. JUNGKOOK looked wounded, but he did not argue. RM turned to Suga. "Can we prove the tablet's location?" "Maybe. If it's logged in through the hospital network. I can trace the internal access point, but not if they routed it." Suga paused, eyes narrowing. "Wait." His typing became faster. The room held still around him. "The session is active, but it's not moving. That means the device is probably physically sitting in that media control room." Jin stood. "Then we go there now." "No," Suga said. "If we rush in, whoever is using it can trigger the release." JUNGKOOK's eyes flicked to the countdown. 38 minutes. The number looked small and huge at the same time. RM began pacing once, then stopped himself. "We need a way to cut the session without warning them." Suga kept typing. "I can try to clone the access request and lock the account from here, But if there's a manual release scheduled from that room, it won't stop the local device. J-Hope, still beside JIMIN, suddenly looked toward the door. What about hospital network control? Everyone turned to him. Hobie swallowed. He looked scared, but his voice didn't shake. The hospital has a media control room because of VIP patient protocols, right? That room probably has restricted internet access for official statements, press coordination, maybe internal monitors. If we can get hospital IT to cut that room's connection, they can't release anything. Suga stared at him for a second, then nodded. That could work. J-Hope looked surprised that his own idea had landed. RM immediately called the senior manager. Get hospital IT. Now. We need the media control room isolated from the network without alerting the person inside. He listened, then snapped. I don't care about protocol. A patient's privacy is being actively compromised from inside your building. JUNGKOOK watched the countdown as if he could force it to stop by hatred alone. TAEHYUNG stood near the wall, breathing unevenly. JIMIN looked at him. TAE. TAEHYUNG's head lifted. JIMIN's voice softened. Come closer. JUNGKOOK's body tensed, but he did not move. TAEHYUNG looked at JUNGKOOK first, almost asking permission and hating that he needed to. JUNGKOOK looked away. TAEHYUNG took one careful step, then another, stopping at the end of the bed, not too close. Not where he used to stand. Not like he still had the right. JIMIN studied him for a moment. Did you tell anyone about my legal questions? TAEHYUNG closed his eyes. Not directly. The answer made JUNGKOOK look back. JIMIN stayed calm. What does that mean? TAEHYUNG's face twisted with shame. I talked to Minsok after our fight. I was angry and confused. I said you were hiding something. I asked if the company knew why you had been acting strange. I didn't tell him details because I didn't know details. But I gave him enough to know where to press. JIMIN nodded slowly, hurt but not surprised. Thank you for telling the truth. TAEHYUNG looked like he deserved anything except kindness. I'm sorry. I know. No, JIMIN, you don't. I need you to hear this. His voice cracked, but he forced the words out. When you started pulling away, I thought you didn't need me anymore. I thought you trusted JUNGKOOK more. I thought you were choosing someone else to understand you. And instead of asking why, I got proud. I got cold. I let someone tell me a story because it made my pain feel justified. JUNGKOOK looked at him, silent. JIMIN's eyes were full now. I wasn't choosing him over you. TAEHYUNG nodded, tears falling. I know that now. JIMIN's lips trembled. I chose him because he didn't ask me to explain before believing I was scared. TAEHYUNG looked down. That one hurt, but he accepted it. JUNGKOOK's face changed again, not with triumph, but with grief. RM finished the call and looked at them. Hospital IT is moving. Security is surrounding the media room exits quietly. We have maybe 5 minutes before whoever is inside notices something. Suga's laptop beeped. Too late. Everyone froze. The countdown changed. 37 minutes disappeared. The scheduled release jumped to 2 minutes. Suga swore under his breath. They know. JUNGKOOK moved toward the door. RM grabbed him. Wait. There is no wait. TAEHYUNG stepped forward. I'm going too. JUNGKOOK spun toward him. You're injured. I can still walk. JIMIN's hand tightened on J-Hope's. Both of you stop turning this into who gets to bleed first. That silenced them, but only for a second. Suga's fingers flew across the keyboard. I can delay it, maybe, but I need access from the device. RM turned to the door. Then we need the room. Jin moved to JIMIN's side. I'll stay with him. J-Hope shook his head. I'm staying too. JIMIN looked at JUNGKOOK. Bring my voice back. JUNGKOOK's eyes locked on his. I will. This time, he did not promise to sacrifice. He promised to return something stolen. RM, Suga, JUNGKOOK, and TAEHYUNG rushed into the hallway. The hospital corridor stretched ahead like a tunnel. 2 floors above, someone was using TAEHYUNG's stolen tablet to release a lie in JIMIN's voice. And when the elevator doors opened, they saw the first sign that this was bigger than Minsok. A company lawyer was already standing there, blocking the way, and beside her was a hospital administrator holding an official privacy form with JIMIN's forged signature. The lawyer did not look surprised to see them. That was the first warning. She stood in front of the elevator like she had been placed there, not running, not panicking, not hiding. Her hair was tied back neatly, her black coat untouched by the chaos that had swallowed everyone else. In her hand was a folder. In the administrator's hand was the form. JUNGKOOK saw JIMIN's name at the bottom before anyone said anything, and the rage that hit him was so sharp he almost didn't hear RM speak. "Move." The lawyer's expression stayed calm. "I can't allow you to interfere with an active privacy procedure." RM gave a short, cold laugh. "You can't allow." Suga stepped forward, eyes on the folder. "Who authorized that signature?" The administrator looked nervous now, eyes moving between the members and the lawyer. "We received confirmation from company legal that Park Jimin consented to a protective media statement." Taehyung's voice came low. "He's upstairs in a hospital bed. He didn't sign anything." The lawyer finally looked at him. "Your device credentials approve the form." Taehyung froze. JUNGKOOK's head turned sharply. The lawyer continued, smooth and brutal. "As part of emergency group representation protocol, member-authorized devices can confirm preliminary consent when direct access is restricted." RM's face darkened. "That protocol is for travel emergencies, not medical statements." "It was interpreted under crisis conditions." Suga's voice cut in. "By who?" The lawyer's eyes flicked to him. "Legal. Names." No answer. JUNGKOOK stepped closer. "You forged his consent and used Tae's stolen tablet to do it." The lawyer's calm cracked just slightly. "Be careful, JUNGKOOK SSI. Your current public position is already unstable. Another aggressive confrontation will not help you." JUNGKOOK smiled, but there was nothing kind in it. "You people keep thinking I'm afraid of looking aggressive." RM put one hand in front of him without taking his eyes off the lawyer. "Don't." The lawyer noticed the restraint and used it. "This is exactly why the statement is necessary. The public is seeing emotional instability among members. A calm explanation protects JIMIN SSI, Taehyung SSI, and you." Taehyung laughed bitterly. "You don't even sound human." The administrator swallowed. "I was told the family approved." RM's eyes snapped to him. "What family?" The administrator looked at the lawyer, suddenly realizing he may have been dragged into something far worse than a routine statement. "I was told a representative from Jimin C's family gave verbal agreement." JUNGKOOK's face went pale with fury. His family doesn't even know the full situation yet. Suga leaned toward RM and spoke fast. "They're building a paper trail. Fake consent, device authorization, family approval. Once the clip releases, the statement follows. Then any denial looks like emotional chaos." RM nodded once, absorbing it. "How much time?" Suga checked his phone. 90 seconds. JUNGKOOK's eyes went to the stairwell behind the lawyer. "Then move, or get moved." The lawyer's face hardened. "Security will remove you before you reach that room." RM stepped closer until his voice dropped into something almost frightening. "Whose security?" She didn't answer. That was enough. Behind them, the elevator doors started to close. But Taehyung shoved his hand between them, forcing them open again. His eyes were on the administrator. "You're a hospital administrator, right?" The man nodded weakly. "Then your first responsibility is the patient, not company legal." The administrator swallowed. Taehyung stepped closer, voice shaking but clear. "You saw his forged signature. You heard us say he didn't consent. If that statement goes out through your facility, this hospital becomes part of a privacy violation against a patient under treatment." The administrator's face changed. "Fear, yes, but also realization." The lawyer snapped. "Do not engage with him." Taehyung didn't look away from the administrator. "Do the right thing. Cut the room access." The administrator hesitated. The lawyer turned sharply. "You are not authorized to." "I am authorized to protect hospital systems from unauthorized use," he said suddenly, voice still shaky but stronger. He pulled out his phone. "IT. Isolate the temporary media control room now. Full network cut." "Yes, now." The lawyer's eyes flashed. "You're making a mistake." RM looked at her. "No. He's choosing not to join yours." Suga looked at his screen. "Network cut in 20 seconds. JUNGKOOK didn't wait. He pushed past the lawyer, and this time RM let him. They ran. The hallway blurred. Taehyung followed despite the pain in his shoulder, Suga right behind him. RM stayed half a step behind JUNGKOOK, not to stop him now, but to make sure he didn't face the door alone. The media control room sat at the end of a restricted corridor, a small space usually used for press coordination during celebrity visits. 2 hospital guards stood outside, but one was arguing into a radio, confused by conflicting instructions. JUNGKOOK reached the door first and tried the handle. Locked. Suga looked at his phone. Countdown frozen at 14 seconds. RM exhaled sharply. The network cut worked. Taehyung leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Then open the door. The guard hesitated. We need authorization. JUNGKOOK turned toward him slowly. There is someone inside, using a stolen device to violate a patient's privacy. The guard still hesitated, but RM took over, voice-controlled and official. Your administrator just ordered isolation. Open the door. The guard finally used his keycard. The lock beeped. JUNGKOOK pushed the door open. Inside, the room was almost empty. 2 monitors, a small desk, a hospital phone. Taehyung's tablet lay on the table, screen glowing, connected to a cable. The countdown remained frozen. 14 seconds. But there was no person inside. Suga rushed to the tablet. Don't touch it, RM warned. Suga leaned close without picking it up. Remote session. Someone was controlling it from another device before the network cut. JUNGKOOK scanned the room. Then they're still in the hospital. Taehyung moved closer to the tablet, looking at his own lock screen, his own wallpaper, his own name being used like a knife. Can you stop the release? Suga pulled gloves from a small hospital supply box and carefully unplugged the cable. Maybe, if this is only cued here. The screen flickered. For 1 second, everyone thought they had won. Then, the tablet displayed a new message, not typed in a chat, but pushed directly onto the screen before the connection died. You cut 1 room. You forgot the original source. JUNGKOOK's blood ran cold. Suga's phone buzzed. He looked at it and went still. The countdown restarted somewhere else. RM's jaw tightened. Where? Suga swallowed. Company server mirror. How much time? 9 minutes. Taehyung looked like the floor had vanished again. We can't get to the company in 9 minutes. JUNGKOOK stood in the middle of the room, breathing hard, eyes moving across every cable, every screen, every reflection. For the first time, even he looked trapped. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Everyone stared at it. JUNGKOOK answered on speaker without speaking. A distorted voice filled the room. You are very good at running toward fires, JUNGKOOK SSI. But you still don't understand the rule. JUNGKOOK's voice came low. Who is this? The voice ignored him. The truth is not hidden in the server. The truth is hidden in the person JIMIN has been protecting. Taehyung's face tightened. RM stepped closer to the phone. What do you want? The voice continued, colder now. Ask JIMIN why he never showed you the first message. Ask him why he went illegal, alone. Ask him what he found under JUNGKOOK's name. The call ended. Nobody breathed. JUNGKOOK looked at RM. RM looked at Taehyung. Suga looked down at the frozen tablet. And upstairs, alone with Jin and J-Hope, JIMIN stared at his own phone, where the same unknown number had just sent him a message. Tell them now, or I release it for you. JIMIN read the message 3 times, but the words didn't change. Tell them now, or I release it for you. His hand went cold around the phone. Jin noticed first because Jin had been watching him the way an eldest brother watches someone pretending not to break. Jimin? JIMIN locked the screen too quickly. That made it worse. J-Hope moved closer from the window. What happened? JIMIN shook his head, but the motion was weak, almost childish. Nothing. Jin's face tightened. Do not protect us with that word anymore. JIMIN looked at him, and for a second he looked embarrassed, like he had been caught doing something wrong. That hurt Jin more than anger would have. J-Hope sat beside the bed carefully. Show us. JIMIN closed his eyes. I can't. Why? J-Hope asked. JIMIN's lips trembled. Because once I show you, JUNGKOOK will never forgive himself. Jin and J-Hope went still. Outside the room, voices moved in the corridor. Security, managers, doctors. A storm of people trying to contain a situation that had already grown teeth. Inside, the room felt smaller than ever. Jin sat on the edge of the chair and lowered his voice. Then we need to know before he comes back and finds out from someone trying to hurt him. Jimin looked toward the door like he expected Jungkook to appear through it just by being mentioned. I found something in the contract addendum. Under Jungkook's name? J-Hope asked softly. Jimin's eyes flashed with fear. How do you know? Jin's face paled. Jimin. Jimin's breath shook. There was a clause. Not in the version everyone saw. In a separate risk document, it said if member conflict escalated into public liability, the company could isolate the member considered most reactive from group promotions temporarily. J-Hope frowned, confused and horrified. Most reactive? Jimin swallowed. Jungkook. Jin slowly stood. They were planning to remove him? Not officially. Not permanently. They used clean words. Temporary image protection. Mental wellness separation. Conflict de-escalation. But it meant if a scandal happened and Jungkook reacted badly, they could make him disappear from schedules while saying it was for his own health. J-Hope covered his mouth, eyes shining. And tonight gives them everything. Jimin's voice broke. The hallway confrontation. The edited clip. Him kicking TAE out. Him chasing staff. If they release the final clip, making it sound like I asked for member separation, it becomes perfect. It looks like I begged them to separate Jungkook from me because he was dangerous. Jin looked furious now, but his anger had nowhere to go. Why didn't you tell him? Jimin looked at him like the answer was obvious and unbearable. Because Jungkook would have burned everything down to stop it, J-Hope whispered. Maybe he should have known. I know? Jimin's tears finally slipped. I know that now. But at the time, I thought if I could quietly challenge the clause, I could protect him without making him feel like a problem. Jin took a shaky breath. You were trying to protect Jungkook. Jimin nodded. And TAE thought I was hiding something from him. And Jungkook thought TAE was hurting me. And RM thought I was stressed. And Yoongi was looking for proof. And everyone was moving around the truth because I buried the center of it. J-Hope reached for his hand. Jimin, this is not your fault. Jimin gave a small, broken laugh. It feels like my silence built the room we're trapped in. Jin sat beside him carefully and took the phone. We need to call them. Jimin gripped his wrist. No, not on the phone. If that unknown number is watching, listening, anything we say can be cut too. Jin froze because he was right. J-Hope looked toward the corridor. Then we go to them. Jin immediately shook his head. He's not walking. Jimin tried to push the blanket aside. I'm not staying here while they use my voice to destroy him. He swung his legs to the side of the bed and immediately went pale. Pain and dizziness hit so fast that J-Hope caught him before he collapsed forward. Jimin! Jin hit the nurse call button instantly. Jimin clutched J-Hope's arm, breathing hard. Don't call them back here. They need the server. You need a doctor, Jin snapped, voice breaking. For once, let someone choose you. Jimin's eyes filled with helpless frustration. That's the problem. Everyone chooses me after the damage. Jin flinched, but he didn't argue. A nurse rushed in, followed by hospital security. Jimin kept trying to sit upright, but his body betrayed him. The room tilted. The monitor beeped faster. J-Hope kept one hand behind his back, whispering, Easy, easy, don't fight your body. But Jimin's eyes stayed on Jin. Hyung, please, the final clip. Jin looked torn apart. Then his phone buzzed. RM. Jin answered immediately but said nothing, putting it on speaker with the volume low. RM's voice came through tense and fast. Jin, is Jimin okay? Jin looked at Jimin, who shook his head slightly, warning him not to say too much. Jin's face hardened. He made a decision. No, But he knows what the final clip is about. Silence on the other end. Jungkook's voice cut in. What does that mean? Jimin closed his eyes. Jin looked at him one last time, asking permission without words. Jimin's tears fell, but he nodded. Jin spoke carefully, aware every word mattered. It's about a clause under Jungkook's name. A plan to isolate him if they could make him look dangerous. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of Jungkook understanding too much at once. When he spoke, his voice was lower than anyone expected. Jimin knew? Jin swallowed. Yes. Taehyung's voice came faintly from the background. He was trying to protect you. Jungkook didn't answer. That scared everyone. RM came back on. How much time, Youngie? Suga answered from nearby. 7 minutes. J-Hope leaned toward the phone. There has to be another way. If the source is at the company's server, can we release the full files first? Suga answered, not without verifying. If we dump private medical files publicly, we hurt ourselves more. We need to stop their edited release, not explode everything. Jimin opened his eyes. His voice was weak but clear enough. Use me. Jungkook's response came immediate and sharp. No. Jimin's fingers tightened around the sheet. Listen. No. Jungkook? I said no. The pain in his voice filled the room through the speaker. Jimin looked devastated. But, he continued, if they're going to release a fake clip saying I requested separation, I can record the truth now. My voice, my face. No edits. I say I never asked for that. I say any clip released without full context is manipulation. RM spoke carefully. Jimin, if you appear visibly unwell, people will panic. Jimin gave a tired smile no one could see through the phone. Good. Maybe they should see what this cost. Jungkook's voice came back quieter. You shouldn't have to bleed publicly to be believed. Jimin's eyes closed. And you shouldn't have to disappear to protect me. Nobody spoke. The nurse checked Jimin's vitals, clearly uncomfortable with the emotional weight in the room, but professional enough not to interrupt. Jin looked at the phone. Can we send it directly through official channels before their clip drops? Suga answered. If management doesn't block it. RM's voice hardened. They won't. Not if it comes from us together. Jimin took the phone from Jin with trembling fingers. Kook. On the other end, Jungkook was silent. Jimin breathed slowly. I'm sorry I hid it. Jungkook's answer came after a long pause. I'm sorry you thought you had to. That broke Jimin more than blame would have. He covered his mouth, trying not to sob because his body couldn't handle it. Taehyung's voice came through next, soft and raw. Jimin, tell us what you want to say. We'll protect the full version. Jimin wiped his tears. No, I'll say it myself. Jin looked at him with fear and pride at the same time. J-Hope adjusted the pillow behind him. The nurse stepped back reluctantly after confirming he was stable enough to sit for a moment, warning them not to stress him further, as if stress had not already been living in the room. Jin positioned the phone camera. J-Hope stood just out of frame but kept one hand near Jimin's shoulder. Jimin looked into the lens, pale, tired, hair messy, eyes red, no stage makeup, no perfect idol mask. Just Jimin. Before Jin pressed record, the phone buzzed again. The unknown number sent another message. Too late. Suga's voice came through RM's phone at the same time. Countdown at 30 seconds. Jimin looked at the camera. His voice steadied. Record. And while the fake version of his pain prepared to go live, Jimin opened his mouth to tell the world the one truth he had been most afraid to say. Jimin did not start with a greeting. He did not smile. He did not say he was okay. That alone made the video feel different from every polished message fans had ever seen. He looked directly into the camera, breathing carefully, his face pale under the hospital light. This is Park Jimin, he said, voice quiet but steady. Any statement or recording claiming that I requested separation from Jungkook, Taehyung, or any BTS member is false if it is released without full context. I did not ask for any member to be removed from my life, from the group, or from my side. Jin's hand shook slightly behind the phone, but he kept filming. J-Hope stood beside the bed, eyes wet, silently counting Jimin's breaths. Jimin continued. I have been scared. I have been confused. I hid things because I thought silence would protect people I love. That was my mistake. But my fear is not permission for anyone to speak for me. His voice cracked on the last sentence, but he didn't stop. If private recordings are released, please understand they were taken during moments of distress and may be edited to hurt people. I will cooperate with legal and medical authorities. But I want to say this clearly now. JUNGKOOK did not threaten me. TAEHYUNG did not poison me. And no company, staff member, or representative has the right to use my pain to divide us. J-Hope closed his eyes as tears fell. Jin looked like he was holding himself together with pure will. JIMIN inhaled slowly. I am tired. I am receiving treatment. I cannot explain everything tonight, but I can say this. I choose the truth, even if it is messy. I choose my members, even when we are hurt. And I choose to speak for myself. He nodded once, small and exhausted. Jin stopped recording. For 1 second, no one moved. Then Jimin's strength left him, and he leaned back into the pillow, eyes closing. J-Hope caught him gently. You did it, he whispered. You did it. Jin immediately sent the raw video to RM, Suga, and the group's emergency shared drive. Downstairs in the media control room, Suga received it with 20 seconds left on the fake countdown. I have Jimin's video, he said. RM looked over his shoulder. JUNGKOOK stood frozen near the door, face unreadable. TAEHYUNG watched him carefully, afraid of what silence meant this time. Suga uploaded the video into the official member-controlled channel, bypassing the company draft system through an emergency access route they had almost never used. RM typed the caption himself, short and impossible to twist. Statement from Jimin. Any edited material released without consent is under legal review. Suga looked at JUNGKOOK. Once this goes up, there's no going back. JUNGKOOK's eyes stayed on the paused frame of Jimin's face. Pale, brave, hurting. Post it, Suga clicked. The video went live 12 seconds before the fake clip dropped. The room seemed to hold its breath. Then the internet exploded. Notifications hit all at once. Fans sharing the video. News accounts scrambling. Hashtags changing direction midstream. People who had been ready to accuse TAEHYUNG froze when Jimin said his name. People who had been ready to condemn JUNGKOOK stopped when Jimin denied the separation. The fake clip still released, but it arrived late, poisoned by Jimin's truth before it could poison him. Suga opened it anyway, forcing himself to listen. It was exactly what they feared. Jimin's tired voice cut and rearranged. I don't feel safe when JUNGKOOK gets like this. Maybe separation is better. JUNGKOOK went completely still. TAEHYUNG looked sick. RM's hands clenched. Suga stopped the clip before it could continue. It's stitched from at least 3 conversations. RM's voice was cold. Save it. Preserve metadata. We use it as evidence. JUNGKOOK didn't move. TAEHYUNG stepped closer. Cook! JUNGKOOK looked at him slowly, and for once there was no anger in his eyes. Only devastation. He knew that was coming. TAEHYUNG nodded. Yes. He made that video while barely able to sit up. Yes. JUNGKOOK looked at the floor. Because of me. TAEHYUNG's face tightened. No. JUNGKOOK laughed once, empty. Don't comfort me. I'm not. TAEHYUNG's voice sharpened. I'm telling you not to steal blame that belongs to the people who did this. JUNGKOOK looked up. TAEHYUNG stepped closer despite everything between them. You hurt me tonight. I won't pretend you didn't. But they planned this before you opened that hospital room door. They wrote your reaction down like a tool. Don't make their plan complete by believing you're the weapon instead of the person they aimed. JUNGKOOK stared at him. Something passed between them then. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition. They had both been used in different directions to cut the same person. RM's phone rang. He answered, listened for 3 seconds, and his face changed. Minsak escaped security. Suga turned sharply. What? RM's voice hardened. He requested legal counsel, then collapsed in the holding room. When they called medical staff, the camera feed went out for 40 seconds. He's gone. JUNGKOOK's eyes went cold again. TAEHYUNG whispered, Someone helped him. Suga looked back at the laptop. The remote source is still active too. The fake clip was not launched from the hospital tablet or the visible company server mirror. RM exhaled slowly. Then where? Suga typed fast, tracing what he could through the release metadata, the mirror path, the delayed upload signature. It bounced through a private device on the hospital guest network. JUNGKOOK stepped closer. Whose? Suga's face darkened. I'm trying to pull the device name. The seconds dragged. Outside the media room, the lawyer was arguing with hospital security. Somewhere below, fans were chanting. Somewhere above, JIMIN was recovering from the cost of telling the truth. Saga finally stopped typing. His face changed in a way none of them liked. RM asked, Yongi? Suga turned the screen. The device name was not a staff code. It was not Minsak. It was not TAEHYUNG. It was a registered visitor device linked to a private guest pass issued earlier that evening, under the name of someone they trusted so completely that nobody had even thought to check. JUNGKOOK. TAEHYUNG stepped back. RM went silent. JUNGKOOK stared at the name like it had just rewritten the entire night. Hobie Young is with JIMIN, he said. Suga's voice dropped. Then either someone used his pass. He stopped, because the second possibility was too ugly to say. JUNGKOOK was already running before anyone finished the sentence, and this time no one tried to stop him. JUNGKOOK reached the stairwell before RM could call his name. The elevator was too slow, the hallway too crowded, the world too loud. He took the stairs two at a time, one hand gripping the railing so hard his palm burned. Behind him, Taehyung's footsteps echoed unevenly, slower because of his injured shoulder but still chasing. RM and Suga followed, their voices bouncing off the concrete walls, telling him to slow down, to think, to not turn another name into a target before they understood the trap. JUNGKOOK heard them, but the only thing in his head was JIMIN upstairs, with J-Hope beside him, and a device linked to Hobie's guest pass being used to release the clip that almost destroyed them. It didn't make sense. Hobie was warmth. Hobie was the person who stayed when rooms got too dark. Hobie was the one who held JIMIN upright while he recorded the truth. That was exactly why the name hurt. Because if someone could put Taehyung's name on poison, JUNGKOOK's voice on a threat, JIMIN's pain on a lie, then they could put Hobie's name on betrayal too. Or worse, they didn't need to put it there. JUNGKOOK pushed through the stairwell door onto JIMIN's floor so hard it slammed against the wall. Security turned, startled. Jin was standing outside JIMIN's room arguing with a nurse, his face pale with stress. When he saw JUNGKOOK running toward him, his expression changed instantly. What happened? JUNGKOOK didn't answer. He reached the door and pushed it open. J-Hope was there. He was seated beside JIMIN's bed, one hand on the blanket, his face wet from crying but calm enough to speak softly to JIMIN. JIMIN's eyes were closed, his breathing steady but weak. For half a second, the scene looked safe. Too safe. J-Hope looked up when the door opened, and his face shifted from relief to confusion when he saw JUNGKOOK's expression. Cook? JUNGKOOK stopped at the foot of the bed, breathing hard. His eyes went to J-Hope's phone on the bedside table, then to the visitor badge clipped to J-Hope's hoodie, then back to J-Hope's face. J-Hope stood slowly. Why are you looking at me like that? Taehyung entered behind JUNGKOOK, followed by RM and Suga. The room filled with the same kind of silence that had started everything earlier. Only this time, the person standing in the center of suspicion was the one nobody wanted to suspect. JIMIN opened his eyes, sensing the shift before he understood it. What is it? RM's voice was careful, but the care made it worse. Hobie, where is your guest pass? J-Hope blinked and looked down at the badge clipped to him. Here. Suga stepped closer, eyes sharp but not cruel. Was it ever out of your sight tonight? J-Hope's confusion deepened. No, I don't think so. Why? JUNGKOOK's voice came low. A device linked to your visitor access released the fake clip. J-Hope stared at him. For 1 second, his face was blank. Then hurt arrived, fast and visible. You think I did that? JIMIN tried to sit up. No. Jin rushed to his side. Don't move. JIMIN ignored him, eyes fixed on JUNGKOOK. No. Not Hobie. JUNGKOOK's jaw tightened. I didn't say he did. J-Hope let out a small, disbelieving laugh. You didn't have to. You ran in here like you were ready to drag me out next. That sentence hit JUNGKOOK because it sounded too much like what he had done to TAEHYUNG. TAEHYUNG looked at him, not with satisfaction, but with warning. This is how it starts. This is how they make you repeat it. RM moved between JUNGKOOK and J-Hope before emotion could become damage. Nobody is accusing anyone. We are checking access. J-Hope looked at RM, tears rising again, but this time they were different. Not sadness. Betrayal. You too? RM's face tightened. Hobie. I stayed with him. J-Hope's voice broke as he pointed toward JIMIN. I stayed when everyone ran toward the evidence. I helped him record that video. I held him when he almost collapsed. And now you come back asking about my pass? Suga's voice softened. That is exactly why they would use your name. J-Hope turned to him. Or maybe that's what you tell yourself so you don't have to feel guilty for doubting me. The room froze. J-Hope never spoke like that. Not because he didn't get angry, but because he usually swallowed anger before anyone else had to taste it. Tonight, there was no space left in him to swallow anything. JIMIN reached weakly toward him. Hobie. J-Hope looked at him and immediately the anger cracked. I'm sorry, not at you. JIMIN's eyes were filled with worry. I know. JUNGKOOK looked at J-Hope's badge again, forcing himself to breathe. Did anyone touch your jacket? J-Hope wiped his face with his sleeve, trying to think. I left it on the chair earlier when I helped a nurse adjust JIMIN's bed. Maybe a manager came in. Maybe hospital staff. I don't know. Suga looked around the room. Who entered while we were gone? Jin answered quickly. Nurse, 1 doctor, 2 security staff, and a woman from hospital administration asking about media consent. I sent her away. RM's eyes sharpened. Woman? Jin nodded. Not the lawyer. Different woman. She said she needed to confirm whether JIMIN had family representation. I didn't let her near him. Suga pulled out his phone. Description? Jin gave it fast. Dark coat, short hair. Hospital ID turned backward. Calm voice. Too calm. Suga typed, then stopped. That matches the person seen outside the holding room when Min-sak escaped. RM's expression darkened. So she came here after helping him. J-Hope went still. She stood near my chair. Everyone looked at the badge again. J-Hope touched it slowly, then unclipped it. His hands shook as he turned it over. On the back, something tiny was stuck under the plastic edge. A thin black square, almost invisible. Suga stepped forward quickly. Don't touch that part. J-Hope froze. Suga took the badge carefully, using tissue from the bedside table, and held it up to the light. NFC relay sticker. They cloned his visitor access. J-Hope closed his eyes, relief and pain hitting at the same time. So it wasn't me. JUNGKOOK's face changed. He looked ashamed before he even spoke. Hyung. J-Hope lifted a hand. Not now. JUNGKOOK stopped. It was deserved. RM took the badge from Suga and handed it to security evidence staff waiting outside. Lock visitor access. Find the woman. The guard nodded and left. JIMIN's breathing became uneven again. The repeated shocks were wearing him down. JUNGKOOK moved toward him instinctively, but JIMIN's eyes went to J-Hope first. Are you okay? J-Hope let out a broken breath. You're asking me that? JIMIN gave a faint, tired smile. You looked hurt. J-Hope sat back beside him, carefully taking his hand. I am hurt, but I'm here. JUNGKOOK watched them, guilt pressing down harder than anger ever had. TAEHYUNG stood beside him quietly and said under his breath, That feeling? Remember it next time your fear points at someone. JUNGKOOK looked at him, but he didn't fight. I know. Suga's phone buzzed again. He checked it, and his face tightened. The woman's ID badge is fake. No match in hospital staff records. RM swore quietly. Jin looked toward the door. Then who is she? Suga's eyes lifted slowly. Someone who had access to Min-sak, the hospital, and company legal movement. Not random staff. JIMIN's fingers tightened around J-Hope's hand. Investor relations. Everyone looked at him. His voice was weak, but his eyes were clear. The first message I found under JUNGKOOK's name came from an investor relations attachment. The clause wasn't written like normal company policy. It was written like a risk control request. RM turned to Suga. Search the drive for investor names. Suga moved to the laptop. JUNGKOOK looked at Jimin, voice low. You remember the attachment name? Jimin closed his eyes, searching through exhaustion. Project 7 clean. The room went quiet. TAEHYUNG repeated it softly. 7 clean. Jimin nodded. Clean image, clean assets, clean risk. That's what the memo said. Suga typed the phrase into the drive search. Results appeared. Too many. Folders. Memos. Schedules. Internal assessments. RM leaned over his shoulder. Suga opened the latest file, and every face in the room tightened as the document loaded. At the top was the name of the actual project lead. Not Minsok, not the lawyer, not a faceless department. A woman whose profile photo appeared beside the file permission record. She had short hair, a dark coat, and a calm expression, the same woman Jin had sent away from Jimin's room. Suga read the name out loud. Han Seor-yan, Senior Investor Liaison. RM's face went cold. I know her. JUNGKOOK turned. From where? RM's answer dropped into the room like another bomb. She was at our renewal meeting, and she was the one who insisted JUNGKOOK needed a behavioral protection clause. The hospital room seemed to shrink around RM's confession. JUNGKOOK stared at him as if he had just spoken in another language. You knew her? RM's face tightened immediately. I met her. I didn't know this. JUNGKOOK's eyes darkened. Did you know about the clause? No. Did you hear her mention my name? RM hesitated. That hesitation was small, but after a night built on pauses and missing answers, it sounded like guilt. Jimin's hand moved weakly against the blanket. RM. RM looked at JUNGKOOK, ashamed but steady. At the renewal meeting, she raised concerns about public volatility. She didn't say your name at first. She said the youngest member had the highest emotional response risk during member-related crises. JUNGKOOK laughed softly, but it was all pain. That means me. I challenged it. Did you tell me? RM went quiet. JUNGKOOK's smile disappeared. Of course not. Jin stepped forward. JUNGKOOK, listen first. JUNGKOOK didn't look away from RM. No, I want to hear why everyone keeps deciding what I'm allowed to know about myself. RM accepted the hit. Because the meeting was full of language like that, risk models, brand exposure, conflict mapping. I thought it was corporate nonsense. I thought if I fought it in the room, it wouldn't reach the final documents. Suga's voice was quiet. But it did. RM nodded. It did. JUNGKOOK took a step back, anger and hurt fighting in his face. So Jimin saw what you missed. RM closed his eyes. Yes. And instead of us knowing together, he carried it alone until he collapsed. RM's voice broke slightly. Yes, the honesty did not make it better, but it stopped the lie from growing. Jimin looked at JUNGKOOK, exhausted and pleading. Cook, don't turn this into RM versus you. JUNGKOOK looked at him. You're the one in the hospital because everyone kept information away from everyone. Jimin's eyes filled. Including me. JUNGKOOK's anger faltered because Jimin did not defend himself. That made it harder to stay angry. TAEHYUNG, still near the wall, spoke carefully. So Han Seor-yan designed the clause. Min-seok executed the manipulation. Legal covered the paper trail. And someone in creative had access to footage. Suga nodded without looking up. That's the structure. J-Hope took a shaky breath. Where is she now? Suga typed quickly, searching through security pings and guest access logs. Her fake hospital badge was used 5 minutes ago near the East Service elevator. RM turned to the guard outside. Lock exits. The guard spoke into his radio, but his face changed as he listened. East Service elevator is already offline. Someone triggered maintenance mode. Suga's jaw tightened. She's moving through staff routes. JUNGKOOK turned toward the door. RM immediately said, No. JUNGKOOK looked back sharply. We are not doing this again. Exactly, RM said. We are not running after someone who wants us separated. JUNGKOOK's breathing was hard. Then what? RM looked at Jimin, then at everyone else. We stop playing defense. The room went still. RM took out his phone and called the senior manager, putting it on speaker. His voice changed, not loud, not emotional, but absolute. This is RM. Effective now. No company legal statement goes out under BTS name unless all 7 members approve it directly. If anyone claims otherwise, it is false. Call external counsel, not company counsel. Preserve all access logs. Freeze internal media systems. And notify the board that senior investor liaison Han Seorion is under suspicion for medical privacy violation, evidence, manipulation, and coercion. The manager on the line stammered, clearly terrified. RMSSI, this could become extremely serious. RM's eyes hardened. It is already serious. You're just hearing us say it out loud. He ended the call. Jin stared at him with something like pride and fear. That will start a war. RM nodded. Good. Suga's laptop pinged. External counsel just received the first evidence package. JUNGKOOK looked at him. You already sent it? Suga didn't blink. Of course. J-Hope almost laughed through his tears. Hyung, when? While everyone was emotionally collapsing. Jin sighed. That sounds like you. Suga kept typing. I sent the full drive copy, the edited clips, the badge clone evidence, and Jimin's video. I did not send private medical files beyond what proves coercion. Jimin looked relieved. Thank you. Suga's expression softened for a second. Don't thank me until we survive the next hour. Taehyung's phone buzzed. He looked at it and went still. JUNGKOOK noticed. What? Taehyung's thumb hovered over the screen. It's from Han Seorion. The room turned toward him. Taehyung read the message, face paling with every word. You want to repair what you broke? Come alone. Bring the original tablet. I'll give you the source file that clears Jimin. If JUNGKOOK comes, I release the member separation memo with his medical notes. JUNGKOOK stepped forward instantly. No. Taehyung looked up. You didn't even hear the location. I don't care. RM held out his hand. Show me. Taehyung gave him the phone. RM read the message, then looked at Suga. Can you trace it? Suga shook his head after a few seconds. Burner relay. But she attached a location pin. Where? Jin asked. RM's expression darkened. Hospital rooftop access. J-Hope whispered. Why? The rooftop. Suga answered flatly. Fewer cameras. Wind noise. Easy threat theater. JUNGKOOK's eyes went cold. She wants TAE alone because he's still the easiest to break. Taehyung looked at him.
Maybe, or because she thinks I'll come because of guilt. Will you? Taehyung looked at Jimin. The answer was already in his eyes. Yes, JUNGKOOK cursed under his breath. Jimin closed his eyes. Taehyung stepped closer to the bed. I'm not going to do something stupid. JUNGKOOK muttered, that would be new. Taehyung shot him a look. I'm going to do something useful. Alone? JUNGKOOK snapped. No, she said alone. And you still believe instructions from people blackmailing us. Taehyung's voice rose. I believe she won't give the source file if she sees you. There may not be a source file. Then we need to know what she actually wants. JUNGKOOK stepped closer, anger rising again. She wants you isolated, like Minseok wanted me isolated, like they wanted Jimin isolated. When are you going to understand the rule? Taehyung's eyes flashed. I understand it. That's why I'm not asking permission to sacrifice myself. I'm asking you to trust me enough to let me stand in front of the person who used me. The room fell silent. Trust. The word was almost cruel now. JUNGKOOK looked at Jimin because somehow every decision still returned to him. Jimin's face was pale but his gaze was steady. Let him go, Jimin said softly. JUNGKOOK looked betrayed. You can't be serious. Let him go with a plan. Taehyung's eyes moved to Jimin. Jimin continued. Not alone, visible alone. Suga slowly nodded. Wire him, track him. JUNGKOOK and RM stay out of sight near the lower rooftop stairwell. Jin and Hobei stay with Jimin. I monitor feeds and record everything. RM considered it. External counsel listens live. Suga nodded again. I can set that up. JUNGKOOK shook his head. If she has people up there, T gets grabbed before we reach him. Taehyung's voice softened. Then reach me fast. JUNGKOOK glared at him, but the glare was weaker now because the memory of Taehyung throwing himself at the man in B2 was still fresh. Jimin reached for JUNGKOOK's hand and JUNGKOOK moved automatically, letting him take it. Jimin's fingers were cold. Kook, I need you to do something harder than fighting. JUNGKOOK swallowed. What? Trust someone who hurt me to help save me. JUNGKOOK's eyes filled with resistance. That's not fair. I know, Jimin's voice shook, but none of this is fair. JUNGKOOK looked at Taehyung. Taehyung didn't look proud, he looked scared. That helped. Pride would have made JUNGKOOK refuse. Fear meant Taehyung understood the cost. JUNGKOOK exhaled slowly. If anything feels wrong, you say the code word and we move. Taehyung nodded. What code word? J-Hope, still holding Jimin's other hand, gave a sad little smile. Spring day. Everyone looked at him. His voice trembled, but he kept going. Because if any of us says that tonight, it means we want to come home. The room softened for one painful second. Even JUNGKOOK looked down. Taehyung nodded. Spring day. Suga stood with the tablet wrapped in evidence cloth. Then we move now. Before leaving, Taehyung stepped close enough to Jimin for the first time since being told to leave. He didn't touch him, he only looked at him and said, I will come back without another lie between us. Jimin's eyes filled. Come back alive first. Taehyung nodded once. JUNGKOOK watched, something complicated tightening in his chest. Then he turned toward the door with RM and Suga. The rooftop was waiting. And for the first time that night, Taehyung was not being pushed out of Jimin's room. He was walking out by choice, carrying the name they had used against him like bait. The rooftop access hallway was colder than the rest of the hospital. The walls were bare, the lights dimmer, and every sound felt too loud. Taehyung stood at the stairwell landing while Suga clipped a small recorder beneath the edge of his hoodie and connected his phone to a live encrypted call with external counsel. RM checked the hallway once, then twice. JUNGKOOK stood near the door, arms crossed, eyes fixed on Taehyung with an intensity that felt like both distrust and protection. Taehyung tried not to take either personally. Tonight had taught him that emotions could be true and still dangerous. Suga handed him the wrapped tablet. Do not unlock it unless I tell you. Do not hand it over. If she asks you to place it somewhere, stall. Taehyung nodded. RM added, you stand at least 2 meters away from the ledge. If she moves too close, step back. Taehyung gave him a tired look. Hyung, I'm not planning a dramatic rooftop fall. JUNGKOOK's voice came sharp. Don't joke. Taehyung looked at him. The sharpness wasn't anger, it was fear dressed badly. Okay, I won't. For a second, they just stared at each other. The last time Taehyung had stood outside a door like this, JUNGKOOK had told him to leave Jimin's room. Now JUNGKOOK was the one who looked like he wanted to stop him from going through. Taehyung lowered his voice. You don't have to like me right now. JUNGKOOK's jaw tight. Good, but you have to let me do this. I know. The admission sounded like it hurt. Taehyung nodded. Then he opened the rooftop door and stepped out. Wind hit him immediately, cold and strong enough to push hair into his eyes. The city lights spread below the hospital, blurred by distance and late-night haze. The rooftop was mostly empty, broken by vents, utility boxes, and a small structure near the far side. Han Seoryun stood near that structure in her dark coat, hands clasped in front of her as if she had been waiting for a business meeting, not a trap. She smiled when she saw him. You came. Taehyung stopped exactly where RM told him to, far from the ledge, tablet held at his side. You asked. Alone, he let out a breath. You know I'm not stupid enough to be completely alone. Her smile did not fade. No, but you are sentimental enough to pretend bravery is the same as control. Taehyung's fingers tightened around the tablet. In his ear, Suga's voice whispered, stay calm, let her talk. Taehyung looked directly at Han. You used my name. Your name was useful. You made Jimin afraid of me. No, she said almost gently. You did that part yourself. I only gave the fear direction. The words hit, but Taehyung did not step back. And JUNGKOOK, Han's eyes sharpened with interest. JUNGKOOK is predictable, beautifully predictable actually. A person who thinks love is proven by damage is easy to frame as dangerous. Taehyung's anger rose, but he held it. You don't know him. I know enough. He would rather be hated than watch Jimin be doubted. Taehyung said nothing because that was painfully close to true. Han continued, that is why the public would believe he overreacted. That is why the board would approve separation. That is why Jimin would blame himself. And that is why you would come here when I called. Taehyung's voice dropped. What do you want? The tablet. Why, you already used it. Because it contains local authorization data and cached project files that could create misunderstandings. He laughed once. You mean evidence? Her expression cooled. Words matter, so does consent. For the first time, Han's face hardened. Consent is complicated when millions of dollars, thousands of employees, and global contracts depend on 7 men maintaining stability. Taehyung stared at her. Jimin is in a hospital bed. And if the public narrative collapses, he will not be the only one damaged. You heard him to prevent damage. Han tilted her head. No, Minseok exceeded instructions. Taehyung's heart kicked. So you admit giving instructions. Silence. In his ear, Suga whispered, good, keep her there. Han realized too late that she had given him something. She smiled again, but it was thinner. Do not mistake partial accountability for vulnerability. Taehyung lifted the tablet slightly. You said you had the source file that clears Jimin. I do. Show me. She reached into her coat and took out a small drive. Full internal audio archive, unedited, including the conversation where Jimin says he wanted to trust you, including the full clip of JUNGKOOK's threat, including the staff room discussion Jimin overheard. Taehyung's throat tight. Why would you give that up? Because I don't need it if I have the tablet. The tablet links you directly to unauthorized approvals. Without it, the chain becomes harder to prove. Taehyung looked at the drive. It could be real, it could be fake, it could be bait. Everything tonight had been bait with a little truth inside. Set it down, he said. Han smiled. You first. No, her eyes narrowed. Taehyung SSI, guilt makes you brave but not smart. Maybe, but I learned something tonight. What is that? He looked at her, steady now. People like you only understand love as leverage. That's why you keep losing track of what happens when people stop hiding it. Han's expression shifted. Careful. Taehyung stepped half a pace forward. Still away from the ledge. You thought Jimin's fear would separate us. You thought Jungkook's protection would destroy him. You thought RM's guilt would make him controllable. You thought Hobai's kindness made him easy to borrow. You thought Jin would be too busy comforting everyone to fight. You thought Yoongi would wait too long. He smiled faintly. You forgot that once Yoongi moves, he already sent the evidence. Han's face changed, small but enough. Taehyung saw it, so did everyone listening. In the stairwell, Suga whispered, she didn't know external counsel had it. RM looked at Jungkook. Jungkook's eyes stayed locked on the door, body ready to move. On the rooftop, Han's voice lowered, you are making a serious mistake. Taehyung shook his head. No, my mistake was letting someone else tell me who Jimin had become. Han took a step closer. Give me the tablet. Taehyung held his ground. Give me the drive. The wind rose between them, then Han's phone buzzed. She checked it quickly and her expression shifted from control to irritation. Your leader is faster than expected. Taehyung's heart jumped. What did he do? Han looked at him. He triggered a board-level emergency review. In the stairwell, RM's face stayed cold. Yes, I did. Han couldn't hear him, but Taehyung smiled as if she could. Then maybe you should go explain yourself. Han's eyes hardened. I have one more file. Taehyung's smile faded. What file? She lifted her phone and played a video silently for 3 seconds, angled just enough for him to see. Jimin in the hospital bed. Jungkook leaning close. A private moment from minutes earlier captured from the room camera. Taehyung's blood ran cold. You had access to his room camera. Han's voice was soft and poisonous. VIP safety monitoring, very useful, very easy to misunderstand if cropped correctly. In the stairwell, Jungkook heard it and went still. Suga cursed. RM's face turned white with rage. Han continued, the world loves friendship until it looks too intense. One suggestive frame, one headline, one rumor, and suddenly Jimin's statement becomes emotional dependency, not truth. Taehyung's hand tightened around the tablet. You wouldn't, Han smiled. I would, not because I care what people believe, because you care. The rooftop door exploded open. Jungkook stepped out before RM could stop him. Then use me, he said. Taehyung spun around. Jungkook, no. Han's smile widened slowly, satisfied. There he is. Jungkook walked forward, eyes fixed on Han, not Taehyung. You want a villain the public can believe in? Take me, release whatever you want. Say I'm unstable, say I threatened everyone, say I forced Jimin to speak, but you leave him out of it. Taehyung's face went pale. You promised him. Jungkook didn't look at him. I promised I'd bring back the truth. And watched him like a scientist watching a reaction occur exactly as predicted. And there it is, the sacrifice response. Jungkook stopped beside Taehyung, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. His voice dropped. No, the claim. Han frowned. What? Jungkook looked at Taehyung, then back at her. You keep treating Jimin like a weak point between us. He's not. He's the person we both failed and the person we both choose to stand for now. Not own, not control, not use, stand for. Taehyung stared at him. Jungkook continued, eyes hard. You don't get my reputation, you don't get T's guilt, you don't get Jimin's fear, you don't get to claim any part of us anymore. Behind them, RM stepped onto the rooftop, phone raised, external counsel still connected, security moving quietly through the second stairwell. Han looked around and finally understood. Jungkook had not ruined the plan by coming out. He had drawn her attention long enough for RM to bring witnesses onto the roof. Suga's voice came through Taehyung's earpiece. Recording clear, confession captured, security in position. Han's face went cold. She threw the small drive toward the ledge. Taehyung lunged on instinct, but Jungkook grabbed his hoodie and yanked him back before he got too close. The drive skidded across the rooftop, stopped inches from the edge, and for one terrible second everyone stared at it. Then the wind shifted. The drive moved. Taehyung reached again, Jungkook held him back, and the drive slipped over the side into the darkness below. Taehyung made a sound that was almost a shout, almost a sob. The drive disappeared over the rooftop edge before anyone could catch it, taking with it the one thing Han had claimed could clear Jimin completely. Jungkook's grip stayed locked on Taehyung's hoodie, keeping him away from the ledge even as Taehyung struggled. Let go, Taehyung snapped. It's gone, Jungkook said, voice harsh with fear. You were almost gone with it. Taehyung stopped fighting, breathing hard, eyes fixed on the empty edge. Han smiled like the fall of that tiny object had returned the world to her control. Evidence is fragile, she said calmly. That is why professionals manage narratives before amateurs chase truth. RM stepped forward with security behind him. You are finished. Han turned to him, still composed. Am I? You have recordings of a tense rooftop conversation. I have board relationships, legal insulation, and enough private material to make every member hesitate before escalating. Suga entered from the stairwell, laptop tucked under one arm, face unreadable. You had. Han looked at him. For the first time, uncertainty crossed her face. Suga lifted Taehyung's tablet, still wrapped and connected to a forensic device. You were so focused on the drive that you forgot the tablet was the original bait. Cached files, local keys, sync history, remote access logs. Han's eyes narrowed. You cannot unlock that without authorization. Taehyung raised his hand slowly. It's my tablet. Suga looked at him. Biometric unlock. Taehyung understood immediately. He stepped closer, placing his thumb against the reader while Suga held the device steady. The screen unlocked. Han's calm cracked, just a little, just enough. Suga moved fast, copying local data to an encrypted drive of his own. There it is, RM looked over. Source archive? Suga's eyes sharpened. Partial enough. Jungkook released Taehyung's hoodie slowly, but he stayed close, still between him and the ledge. Han stepped backward, not toward the edge but toward the second exit. Security moved to block her. You don't understand what you're doing, she said, the professional mask finally thinning. You think truth saves artists, truth feeds the machine. You release this and every private weakness becomes public appetite. Fans will say they want honesty, but they will dissect every tear, every glance, every fight. I was protecting the asset. RM's voice turned icy. They are not assets. Han looked at him. That sentence is why people like you lose control. Jungkook's answer came before RM's. Good. Han stared at him. Jungkook stepped forward, the wind cutting around him, face calm now in a way that had nothing to do with surrender. We don't want your kind of control. Taehyung stood beside him, still shaken but upright. And you don't get to call our pain protection. Suga glanced at the screen. External counsel has the live recording. Hospital security has witnessed coercion. The tablet logs show unauthorized use of T's credentials, connection to the fake statement, and the remote session path. Also, your message to T is preserved. Congratulations, you made the chain very clear. Han's eyes moved to each of them, calculating one last escape. Then she looked at Jungkook. You still won't survive the public version. Jungkook's jaw tight. She smiled, finding the wound. They will see you rushing into rooms, threatening members, choosing Jimin over judgment. They will call it obsession. They will ask what gives you the right. They will make your protection look like possession. Taehyung's eyes flicked to Jungkook. This was the deepest hook, not because it was true but because Jungkook had feared it all night. Jungkook looked down for one moment, then his phone buzzed. A message from Jimin appeared on the screen, short and shaky, probably typed with effort. Come back as yourself, not as my shield. Jungkook read it once, his face changed. The tension in his shoulders dropped, not fully but enough for him to breathe. He looked back at Han. Let them ask. Han's smile faded. What? Let them question me, let them criticize me, let them say I was wrong when I was wrong. I can survive that. His voice lowered. What I won't survive is letting people like you teach me that love means silence. The rooftop went quiet except for the wind. RM looked at Jungkook with something like respect. Taehyung looked away, blinking fast. Suga kept copying files, but even he paused for half a second. Security moved in, finally taking Han by both arms. She did not fight. She only looked at RM and said, the board will not forgive this. RM's answer was immediate. Then they can join the review. As security escorted her toward the stairwell, Han turned her head one last time. You think this ends with me? Nobody answered, because none of them believed it did. When the door closed behind her, the rooftop felt suddenly too open, too quiet. Taehyung sank back against a utility wall, breathing through pain and adrenaline. Jungkook looked at him. Your shoulder. Taehyung let out a small, exhausted laugh. Now you care? Jungkook didn't smile. I cared before, I was angry before too. Taehyung nodded slowly. Both can be true. Jungkook looked toward the edge where the drive had fallen. You almost went after it. I thought it was the only proof. You were wrong. I've been wrong a lot tonight. Jungkook leaned against the wall beside him, leaving a careful distance. Me too. For a moment neither spoke. The city moved below them like nothing had happened, cars passing, lights blinking, people living ordinary lives while theirs had split open under hospital lights and rooftop wind. Taehyung's voice came quiet. When you kicked me out, I hated you. Jungkook stared ahead. I know. And when Jimin asked me to leave, I hated myself more. Jungkook closed his eyes briefly. I know that too. Taehyung looked at him. Do you? Jungkook turned. The fight had drained out of him, leaving only the truth. I thought if I kept you away, I could stop the thing hurting him, but I made him choose when he was already breaking. Taehyung swallowed. I made him feel abandoned before you ever opened that door. They stood with that, no excuses, no clean forgiveness, just the shared weight of two different failures. RM approached them with his phone in hand. Jimin is asking if we have the truth. Jungkook looked at Suga. Suga removed the encrypted drive and nodded. Enough to start, enough to stop them. Enough to prove the clips were manipulated. Taehyung closed his eyes in relief. Jungkook exhaled like he had been holding his breath since the first hospital beep. RM looked toward the stairwell. Then we go back together. Jungkook nodded. Taehyung pushed himself off the wall, wincing. Jungkook reached out instinctively, then stopped before touching him. Taehyung noticed the restraint and gave a small nod. Permission. Jungkook supported him carefully by the uninjured side. It was awkward, fragile. Not friendship restored, but maybe the first honest step back toward it. When they returned to Jimin's room, Jin opened the door before they could knock. His eyes moved over them quickly, counting bodies, checking wounds. You're alive. Suga entered first with the drive. RM followed. Taehyung and Jungkook came last, side by side. Jimin saw them and tried to smile, but his eyes went immediately to the way Jungkook was helping Taehyung. Something in his face softened and broke at the same time. J-Hope whispered they came back. Jungkook stepped toward the bed. This time he didn't block Taehyung, he didn't stand between, he stood beside. Taehyung stopped at the foot of the bed, eyes wet. We have enough proof, he said. Jimin's breath shook. You're hurt. Taehyung gave a small, broken smile. You want to talk? Jimin looked at Jungkook. And you? Jungkook's voice was quiet. I came back as myself. Jimin's eyes filled because he understood the message had reached him. Jungkook lowered his head. I'm sorry. Jimin reached for him but then looked at Taehyung too. His hand hovered between them, weak and trembling. The choice was visible, painfully visible. Jungkook saw it and stepped back half a pace, giving space. Taehyung did the same. Jimin's face twisted and he whispered, don't make me choose who gets to be forgiven first. Both of them froze. Jin looked away, eyes wet. RM lowered his head. J-Hope gripped the blanket. Suga closed the laptop slowly. Jungkook swallowed. Then we won't. Taehyung nodded, voice breaking. We'll wait. Jimin looked at them, tears slipping into his hairline. I don't want waiting, I want truth. Jungkook and Taehyung exchanged a look, then Taehyung spoke first. Truth is I failed you because I was scared you didn't need me anymore. Jungkook followed, voice rough. Truth is I used protecting you as an excuse to control the room. Jimin closed his eyes as the words landed, painful but clean. RM stepped forward next. Truth is I ignored warning signs because I thought keeping peace was leadership. Jin's voice trembled. Truth is I wanted you okay so badly that I didn't ask why you weren't. J-Hope wiped his tears. Truth is I kept smiling because I didn't know what else to give you. Suga looked at Jimin, quiet and honest. Truth is I waited for proof when I should have trusted the pattern sooner. Jimin opened his eyes. The room was heavy but different now, not fixed, not healed, but real. For the first time that night, no one was hiding behind a roll. Then Suga's laptop pinged. Everyone turned. The first external council review summary had arrived. Suga opened it. His face changed. RM stepped closer. What? Suga read silently, then looked at Jimin. There's one more file recovered from the tablet cache. Jungkook's body tensed. What file? Suga's voice dropped. A message scheduled for Jimin before he collapsed. It was never delivered because the network failed. Jimin stared at him. From who? Suga looked at the sender line and his face went pale. From Jungkook's account. Jungkook froze. I didn't send him anything. Suga opened the message. The room seemed to hold its breath as the words appeared on the screen. If you tell them what you found under my name, I'll never forgive you. Jimin stared at the message, horror spreading across his face. Jungkook took one step back, shaking his head. No, I never wrote that. But Jimin's silence said the worst part before anyone else could. He had seen a message like that before. And for a whole night, maybe longer, part of him had believed Jungkook meant it. The message on the screen looked simple. That was what made it cruel. No dramatic threat, no long explanation, just one sentence written under Jungkook's account, shaped exactly like the kind of fear that could poison a heart quietly. If you tell them what you found under my name, I'll never forgive you. Jimin stared at it like the hospital room had tilted beneath him. Jungkook stood frozen near the foot of the bed, his face empty with shock, his hands slowly curling into fists and then opening again because there was nothing to hit, no enemy standing in front of him, only a sentence wearing his name. I didn't write that, he said, but his voice sounded distant, almost small. No one answered immediately, and that silence hurt him more than doubt. Jimin's lips parted, but no sound came out. Jin looked from the screen to Jimin, then to Jungkook, understanding arriving in his eyes before anyone spoke it aloud. Jimin, he said softly, you saw this before. Jimin closed his eyes, his face twisted not from physical pain this time but from the kind of guilt that had been sitting inside him for too long. Not that exact message, he whispered. Jungkook took one step closer. What do you mean not exact? Jimin opened his eyes slowly. He looked terrified of answering, but tonight had already punished every secret in the room. 2 nights ago after I found the claws, I got a message from your account. Jungkook's breathing changed. Taehyung looked down, his expression tightening as if he could already see where this was going. RM's jaw clenched. Suga stopped typing, waiting. J-Hope held Jimin's hand but said nothing. Jimin swallowed, voice breaking around every word. It said, don't make my name the reason everything falls apart. Trust me, stay quiet until I handle it. Jungkook shook his head immediately. No, Jimin looked at him with tears in his eyes. I know, no Jimin, I never sent that. I know now. Jungkook's face crumpled slightly. But then, Jimin looked away. That was the answer. Jungkook stepped back as if the truth had pushed him physically. You believed it. Jimin's tears fell. I believed it enough to wait. The room seemed to stop breathing. Jungkook stared at him, not angry, not yet, just shattered. You thought I would ask you to protect my name by hurting yourself. Jimin shook his head quickly, then stopped because the truth was messier than yes or no. I thought you were scared. I thought maybe RM had told you about the meeting. I thought maybe you knew the claws could be used against you and didn't want me to make it worse. I thought maybe you were trying to protect me by telling me to wait. Jungkook's voice came out rough. I would have come to you. I know. No, you don't. The pain in his voice made everyone freeze. Jungkook looked at Jimin, eyes wet now, anger finally rising but aimed at the lie at himself. At the space between them that someone had filled with poison. You know me better than anyone and they still made you believe I would leave you alone with that. Jimin flinched. Taehyung stepped forward slightly but RM stopped him with a look. This was not a fight anyone else could interrupt too quickly. Jimin's voice trembled. I was tired. Jungkook's face changed. The anger cracked immediately. Jimin continued, barely holding himself together. I was scared, Kook. I was so scared. Every time I tried to tell someone, something got worse. T was angry, RM was busy, the company kept sending pressure, the clause had your name in it, then a message came from you telling me to stay quiet and I didn't want to believe you were abandoning me. So I told myself you had a reason, I told myself waiting was trust. Jungkook closed his eyes and one tear slipped down before he could hide it. That wasn't trust, that was them trapping you with my voice. Jimin nodded, crying openly now. I know. Suga's fingers moved again, quieter this time, not because the evidence was less urgent but because everyone understood they were watching the real damage surface at last. Not the scandal, not the clips, the tiny manufactured moments that made people who loved each other hesitate when they should have reached out. Suga opened a metadata panel and leaned closer. The message was not sent from Jungkook's device. Jungkook looked at him sharply. Suga continued, it was sent through a clone session token. Same method as T's tablet, different account path. RM stepped beside him, whose access created the clone. Suga worked for a few seconds, then his expression darkened. Creative team device, shared editing station. It had cached logins from multiple member accounts because of draft approvals. Jin cursed under his breath. That means they could imitate any of us. J-Hope whispered, they didn't just record us, they became us. That sentence landed heavily. Taehyung looked at Jimin, guilt returning in a new shape. Did you get one for me too? Jimin's eyes moved to him and the silence answered before he did. Taehyung's lips parted. What did it say? Jimin looked exhausted by the truth, but he did not run from it. It said, if you don't trust me enough to tell me, don't expect me to stand beside you when this explodes. Taehyung looked like someone had taken the air out of his chest. Jimin. I thought it was you after our fight. I never sent that. I know. Taehyung pressed a hand against his mouth, eyes shining with horror. So when you called me, Jimin nodded slowly. I was trying to ask if you meant it. Taehyung turned away, unable to stand the sight of Jimin's face, and I didn't answer. No one softened that truth for him, no one could. Jungkook looked at Taehyung, and for once his pain did not turn into accusation. He understood too clearly now. They had both been turned into locked doors in front of Jimin. RM's voice came low and heavy. Did anyone else receive messages? The members looked at one another. Jin took out his phone first, scrolling back with shaking fingers. I got one yesterday from Jimin's account. It said he didn't want me asking questions because it made him feel like a burden. Jimin's eyes widened. I didn't send that. Jin's face folded with grief. I thought you did. That's why I stopped asking and just tried to comfort you. J-Hope looked sick as he checked his own messages. I got one too from management, but quoting Jimin, it said he needed positive energy, no heavy conversations. His voice broke, so I kept smiling. Suga's face hardened as he searched his phone. I got a file request from RM's account telling me not to dig into legal until after the investor meeting. RM turned sharply. I never sent that. Suga nodded, jaw tight. I know now. RM checked his own phone and his expression slowly changed from confusion to devastation. I got a message from Jungkook's account saying Jimin was overreacting and that I shouldn't pressure him because it would make him shut down. Jungkook stared at him. I never said that. RM looked at Jimin, eyes full of regret. That's why I backed off. The whole room sat inside the horror of it. Every failure they had blamed on personality, exhaustion, pride, or fear had been guided. Not created from nothing but directed, sharpened, timed. Han and Minseok had not needed to invent their weaknesses. They had only needed to send the right sentence to the right person at the worst possible time. Jimin's face collapsed. This is why nobody came at the same time, he whispered. Every time I reached for one of you, they had already moved the door. Jungkook moved then, slowly, carefully, not rushing to grab or protect or claim. He stepped closer to Jimin's bed and stopped where Jimin could choose whether to reach back. I'm here now, he said, voice shaking. Not as a shield, not as someone deciding for you, just here. Jimin looked at him for a long moment. His hand trembled above the blanket. Jungkook did not take it, he waited. That waiting said more than every desperate act of protection he had made all night. Finally, Jimin placed his hand in Jungkook. Jungkook closed his fingers around it gently like he was holding something already hurt. Taehyung watched pain flashing across his face, but he did not look away. Jimin saw him. With his other hand weaker but determined, he reached toward Taehyung too. Taehyung froze. Jimin, you don't have to. Jimin's voice was barely above a whisper. I know. Taehyung stepped close and took his hand, and the moment he did, he broke, not dramatically, not loudly. Just one sharp breath and then tears he could not stop. I'm sorry I made your fear feel true. Jimin cried harder, but his voice was steady enough to answer. I'm sorry I let fake words speak louder than what I knew about you. Jungkook looked down, his hand still holding Jimin's, Taehyung's hand holding the other, the three of them connected by pain that was not fixed but finally named. RM stood behind them, eyes wet, while Jin wiped his face openly and J-Hope turned toward the window because he could not bear to cry in front of Jimin again. Suga saved the clone message evidence and quietly sent it to external counsel. Then he looked at the group and said, this is the real story. RM nodded slowly. Then this is what we tell. Jin looked up, alarmed. All of it. RM looked at each of them. Not every private detail, not everything the public is hungry for. But enough to make the pattern impossible to deny. Jungkook did not take his eyes off Jimin. We don't let them release pieces anymore. Jimin's fingers tightened weakly. Together, Taehyung nodded through tears. Together. For the first time all night, the word did not sound like a slogan, it sounded like a decision. The statement was not written by the company. That mattered. Everyone in the room felt the weight of that decision as RM sat beside Suga's laptop and began typing, not as a leader polishing damage control, but as a member trying to tell the truth without turning 7 private wounds into public entertainment. Jimin stayed in bed, exhausted but awake, with Jin adjusting his pillow and J-Hope watching the monitor like he could protect him by memorizing every beat. Jungkook sat on one side of the bed, close but not crowding him. Taehyung sat on the other side, his injured shoulder wrapped by a nurse who kept glancing at the room as if she could sense she had walked into history but was professional enough not to ask. Suga organized evidence into categories with ruthless calm. Manipulated audio, cloned access, forged consent, planted medical items, pressure files, unauthorized room camera access, fake messages from member accounts. Each category was a blade. Each blade proved the same thing. This was not one misunderstanding. It was a system built to make them doubt each other before they could defend each other. RM read the draft aloud. Tonight, private and manipulated material involving BTS members was released without consent. Evidence indicates unauthorized access to member accounts, falsified approvals, and attempts to distort private conversations during a medical emergency. JIMIN is receiving treatment and has already spoken directly. We ask that no edited clips be treated as truth without full context. He stopped and looked at JIMIN. Too cold, JIMIN thought about it then nodded slightly. It sounds like a company. RM exhaled, almost smiling sadly. I was afraid of that. Jin leaned forward. Say we were hurt. Everyone looked at him. Jin's eyes were still red but his voice was firm. Don't make it only technical. People need to understand this wasn't just privacy. They tried to turn us against each other. J-Hope nodded, and say we are handling it together. Suga looked at the screen. That part matters. Taehyung swallowed. Say no member should be blamed based on edited material. JUNGKOOK looked at him then nodded. Say especially JIMIN. JIMIN turned to him. JUNGKOOK held his gaze, voice quiet, because they'll still try to make you look unstable. Taehyung added softly, and they'll try to make JUNGKOOK look dangerous. J-Hope looked down, and maybe me look involved. Jin's jaw tight, and T looked guilty. Suga said, and RM looked negligent. RM gave a humorless breath. Some of that one may be fair. JIMIN's eyes softened. Not tonight. RM looked at him. JIMIN, you made mistakes, JIMIN said quietly. So did I, so did all of us. But negligence is what they want to call every human weakness they exploited. Don't give them that word. RM looked down at the keyboard for a long moment then began rewriting. The second draft was less polished, more alive. We were hurt tonight not only by false information but by attempts to use our private fears against one another. We have made mistakes with each other and we will address those as people, not as headlines, but no member consented to having pain edited into accusation. Jin nodded. That's it. Suga added, we should include external counsel and authorities are reviewing evidence. RM typed it in. JUNGKOOK's phone buzzed repeatedly but he ignored it until JIMIN looked at him. You should check. JUNGKOOK shook his head. It can wait. JIMIN gave him a tired look. Don't start proving love by refusing reality again. Taehyung lowered his head to hide a small smile and even Suga's mouth twitched. JUNGKOOK looked embarrassed then checked his phone. His expression shifted. My brother messaged. He saw the clips. He asked if I'm okay. The room softened. Jin said, answer him. JUNGKOOK hesitated. JIMIN's fingers brushed his wrist. As yourself. JUNGKOOK nodded and typed slowly. I'm not okay yet but I'm safe. JIMIN is being treated. I'll explain when I can. He sent it then looked at JIMIN. Happy. JIMIN closed his eyes briefly. Relieved. Taehyung checked his own phone then froze. JIMIN noticed. Taehyung swallowed. My father messaged me. His voice cracked slightly. He said, I don't know what is happening but don't stand alone if you don't have to. Nobody spoke for a second. Taehyung wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed by how hard that hit. JUNGKOOK looked at him then away, giving him privacy while staying present. J-Hope's phone buzzed next, then Jin's, then RM's. Their families, close friends, staff they trusted, all sending fragments of fear from outside the sealed hospital room. The world was reacting, but inside that room the 7 of them were doing something quieter and harder. They were learning how to answer without becoming the version of themselves the manipulation expected. RM finished the statement and turned the laptop toward JIMIN. You approve. JIMIN read it slowly. His eyes caught on the line about private fears being used against them. He inhaled carefully. Add one sentence. RM placed his hands on the keyboard. JIMIN's voice was soft but curt. Do not turn our pain into teams. The room went still. Taehyung's eyes lowered. JUNGKOOK's jaw tightened. Jin whispered, that's good. RM typed it exactly. Do not turn our pain into teams. Suga attached the evidence summary, not the raw private files, but enough forensic proof for credible journalists and legal authorities to understand the manipulation. They agreed to release JIMIN's video first, the group statement second, and preserve the deeper files for investigation. No one liked withholding full context, but Suga reminded them of the rule they were making for themselves now. Truth was not the same as feeding the public every wound. JUNGKOOK looked at JIMIN. Are you sure? JIMIN nodded. Yes. RM posted it. For a few seconds nothing happened in the room. The statement went out into the storm, but the storm took time to answer. Then the notifications began again. This time the tone shifted. Major outlets paused earlier claims. Fan translators spread the statement in dozens of languages. Hashtags that had been attacking Taehyung changed into demands for context. JUNGKOOK's name still trended, but now beside words like manipulated and protect, not only aggressive. J-Hope's name appeared too, attached to questions about clone passes, and within minutes the hospital issued a short notice confirming investigation into unauthorized credential use. RM read it with a grim nod. They're covering themselves, but it helps. Suga's phone buzzed. External counsel says Han is being held for formal questioning. Minseok still missing, but his access has been frozen. Board emergency review confirmed. Jin leaned back in his chair, exhausted. So we won? Suga looked at him. No, the honesty made everyone quiet. We stopped the first wave. Jimin looked toward the window where the city lights blurred through the glass. Then what comes next? RM's answer was quiet. The part where truth becomes consequences. The doctor entered shortly after, firm enough to end the emotional strategy meeting no matter who was in the room. Jimin needed rest, not symbolic rest, real rest, monitors checked, medication adjusted, visitors reduced. The doctor looked at all 6 standing members and said, "One person stays for the next hour, the rest wait outside." Immediately, Jungkook and Taehyung both looked at Jimin, then at each other, and the old pattern almost rose again. Who stays, who leaves, who gets chosen? Jimin saw it happen in their faces and closed his eyes with a tired sigh. "Don't." Jungkook looked down, Taehyung stepped back. Jin raised his hand before anyone could turn the moment into another wound. "I'll stay." Everyone looked at him. Jin's voice was gentle but final. "Not because I'm chosen, because I'm the oldest. I'm calmer than both of you right now, and if Jimin wakes up, I'll call everyone instead of deciding who deserves to know." Jungkook looked ashamed. Taehyung nodded. Jimin gave the faintest smile. "Thank you, Hyung." Jin moved to the chair beside him. Jungkook leaned close to Jimin, stopping just short of touching him. "I'll be outside." Jimin opened his eyes. "I know." Taehyung stepped forward next. "Me too." Jimin looked at him. "I know." J-Hope squeezed Jimin's hand gently. "Rest, please. No more heroic speeches for at least 20 minutes. Jimin almost laughed, but it came out as a breath. Suga took the laptop. RM held the evidence drive, and one by one they left the room. Jungkook was last. At the door, he looked back. Jimin was already fatting into exhaustion, Jin beside him like a guard who knew softness could be stronger than rage. Jungkook stepped into the hallway and closed the door quietly. Taehyung was waiting near the wall. For a moment, neither said anything. Then Taehyung slid down to sit on the floor, back against the wall, injured arm resting carefully in his lap. Jungkook stood for a few seconds, then sat beside him, leaving a small space between them. Not enemies, not healed, just there. Taehyung stared ahead. "He chose Jin." Jungkook nodded. "Good." Taehyung looked at him, surprised. Jungkook kept his eyes on the opposite wall. "I'm tired of making his choices about me." Taehyung looked down. "Me too." Down the hallway, RM spoke quietly with external counsel, Suga reviewed files, and J-Hope cried into his sleeve where he thought no one could see. The hospital had not become peaceful. The world outside had not become kind. But for the first time that night, Jimin was behind a closed door without being alone, and nobody outside that door was fighting to own the pain. The hallway became their waiting room, their courtroom, and their confession booth. No one wanted to sit in the official family lounge where managers, lawyers, and hospital administrators kept passing through with frightened faces and carefully chosen words. So the members stayed on the floor outside Jimin's room like they were younger again, like fame had not built layers of glass around them, like sitting shoulder to shoulder could still make a terrible night less impossible. RM stood at first, taking calls, giving instructions, correcting language, refusing any attempt from company representatives to turn the group statement into softer words. Eventually, Jin opened the door just enough to whisper that Jimin was asleep. That single sentence loosened something in everyone. Jungkook dropped his head back against the wall and closed his eyes. Taehyung rubbed his uninjured hand over his face. J-Hope let out a breath that sounded like it had been trapped for hours. Suga closed the laptop halfway but kept one hand on it like the war might restart if he let go. RM ended a call and finally sank to the floor across from Jungkook and Taehyung. For a while, they listened to the hospital sounds, distant footsteps, a rolling cart, muted voices, the soft beep of machines through the wall. Then J-Hope spoke, his voice rough. "I'm angry." Everyone looked at him. He laughed once, embarrassed and hurt. "I know that sounds obvious, but I don't think I let myself know until now." RM's face softened. "At who?" J-Hope looked at his hands. "Everyone, them, us, me, the fake badge, the fact that for a few minutes you all looked at me like I might have done it." Jungkook lowered his eyes. "Hyung, I know why," J-Hope said, not cruelly but firmly. "I understand why, but it still hurt." Jungkook nodded slowly. "I'm sorry." RM said the same, then Suga, then Taehyung. J-Hope accepted each apology with a small nod, but his eyes stayed wet. "I don't want to be the person everyone thinks can handle being misunderstood because I'm bright." The sentence hit them quietly. J-Hope looked toward Jimin's door. He said, "I kept smiling because I didn't know what else to give him." He was right. I thought if I stayed warm nobody would freeze, but tonight I felt something ugly. "You looked at me like that, I wanted to walk out." Jin, standing near the door, leaned against the wall, eyes sad. "But you didn't." J-Hope gave him a tired smile. "Because Jimin was holding my hand." Suga looked down. "That's still a burden." J-Hope nodded. "I know." RM rubbed his forehead. "Then we changed the rule, nobody has to be the emotional climate for everyone." Jin exhaled. "Good, because I'm tired of being the emergency blanket." Despite everything, Taehyung let out a small laugh. It cracked the tension just enough for people to breathe. Jin pointed at him. "Don't laugh too hard, you're next." Taehyung's smile faded because he knew Jin was right. The hallway became quiet again. Taehyung looked at Jungkook, then at RM, then at J-Hope and Suga. "I don't know how to apologize without making it about me." Jungkook glanced at him. Taehyung continued, voice low. "When I didn't answer Jimin's calls, I thought I was punishing him for shutting me out. That sounds disgusting now." No one corrected him. The honesty needed space. "I wanted him to feel the silence I felt. I didn't think about why he might be calling. I didn't think maybe he was scared. I thought about my pride first." RM's eyes lowered. Jin looked at him gently. J-Hope wiped his face again. Taehyung's voice shook. "And the worst part is Minseok didn't create that. He used it, but it was already there. I was already angry. I was already jealous. I was already scared Jungkook had become the person Jimin trusted more." Jungkook looked at him but said nothing. Taehyung forced himself to continue. "I hated that, not because I hate you, Kook, because it made me feel replaced." Jungkook's expression tight. "You weren't replaced. I know that now." "No," Jungkook said quietly. "You should know it from me too. I didn't want your place." Taehyung looked at him, eyes wet again. Jungkook stared at the floor. When Jimin came to me, I didn't think I was being chosen over you. I thought he came because he was scared and I happened to see it. But tonight when you showed up at the hospital room, I acted like I had more right to his fear than you did. He swallowed hard. That was wrong. Taehyung's face shifted, surprised by how direct the apology was. Jungkook looked at him then. I'm sorry I humiliated you in front of everyone. Taehyung looked away fast, but not before the hurt showed. Thank you. Jungkook added, voice rougher, I'm not sorry I was scared for him. Taehyung nodded. I wouldn't ask you to be. But I'm sorry I turned that fear into a verdict. Taehyung closed his eyes. I deserve suspicion. Maybe. Jungkook's honesty was quiet, but not exile. The word made Taehyung inhale sharply. Exile. That was what it had felt like, being thrown out of Jimin's room not as a friend who made a mistake but as a threat. I hated you, Taehyung admitted again. Jungkook nodded. I know. I might still be angry tomorrow. You should be. Taehyung looked at him. Jungkook's eyes were tired but steady. I'm angry too, at you, at me, at them, at everything, but I don't want Jimin to wake up and feel our anger standing at the foot of his bed. Taehyung nodded slowly. Then what do we do with it? Suga answered from across the hall. Use it properly. Everyone turned to him. Suga looked up from the laptop. Anger is not the problem, direction is. Tonight they kept redirecting our anger at each other. Tomorrow we point it where it belongs. RM nodded. Legal, board review, internal audit, criminal complaint if the substance testing confirms intentional exposure. Jin's face hardened. And staff protection, Doyeon was used too. Suga nodded. External counsel is arranging witness protection from retaliation. He handed over proof. J-Hope leaned his head back. This is bigger than one night. RM looked toward Jimin's door. Yes. Jungkook's voice went quiet. Jimin knew first. They all absorbed that. Jimin, who looked so fragile in the bed, had been the first one to notice the monster behind the polished words. He had carried it alone until his body gave up. Jin's expression tightened with protective grief. When he wakes up, nobody asks him to be brave for at least a day. Suga gave him a look. You think you can stop him? Jin sighed. No, but I can annoy him into drinking water. J-Hope smiled faintly. RM's phone buzzed again. He read the message and his face changed. The board accepted emergency review. Han is suspended pending investigation. Minseok's access logs show he contacted 2 media accounts before disappearing. Police liaison has been notified. Taehyung looked up. Still no Minseok. RM shook his head. Not yet. Jungkook's eyes darkened. He'll release something else. Suga nodded. Probably. Jin groaned softly. Can we have 5 minutes before the next disaster? The hallway answered with silence, and somehow that silence became their 5 minutes. They sat there, bruised by truth, held together by exhaustion. After a while, J-Hope started crying again, but this time Jin sat beside him without joking. RM leaned his head against the wall and closed his eyes. Suga kept watch. Taehyung stared at his hands. Jungkook watched Jimin's door, then Taehyung spoke, barely above a whisper. Kook. Jungkook looked at him. Taehyung didn't meet his eyes. If Jimin wakes up and asks for you first, I won't take it as being replaced. Jungkook's throat tight. And if he asks for you, Taehyung finally looked at him. Jungkook continued, I won't take it as losing him. Something fragile passed between them, not forgiveness completed, not friendship restored to what it had been, something more honest maybe, an agreement to stop making Jimin's need into a competition. Before either could say more, the door opened quietly. Jin looked up. The nurse stepped out. He's awake, she said. Everyone moved at once, then stopped at the same time, remembering the new rule, no rushing in, no turning his room into a battlefield of love. The nurse looked at the 6 of them and softened despite herself. He asked for all of you. Jungkook and Taehyung looked at each other. RM stood. J-Hope wiped his face. Suga closed the laptop. Jin opened the door wider. This time nobody entered first as a claim. They entered together. Jimin looked smaller when they came in. Not weak in spirit, not broken in the way people outside might imagine, but physically drained, his body demanding payment for every truth he had forced through it. The room lights had been dimmed. The monitor beeped steadily beside him. His hair fell messily over his forehead and his eyes were heavy, but when he saw all 6 members enter together, something eased in his face. You actually listened, he whispered. Jin moved to his side first, but slowly giving him space. Don't sound so surprised, we can learn after being emotionally destroyed. Jimin's mouth twitched faintly. J-Hope came next, then Suga, RM, Taehyung and Jungkook. They formed a loose half-circle around the bed, not crowding him, not fighting for position. Jimin noticed. His eyes became wet again, but he blinked it back. What happened? RM answered, voice low and clear. The statement is out. Your video changed the direction. Han is suspended and being questioned. External counsel has the evidence. The hospital confirmed unauthorized credential use. Minseok is still missing. Jimin absorbed each sentence, his expression tightening at the last one. He'll come back, Suga nodded, probably through another leak. Jin immediately said, that is tomorrow's nightmare. Jimin looked at him. Jin pointed at the monitor. Doctor's orders, tonight's nightmare has visiting hours. Jimin almost smiled, but his eyes moved to Jungkook and Taehyung. Both of them stood quieter than usual, careful, waiting. Jimin looked tired of waiting. Come here, he said softly. They both moved, then both stopped almost at the same time. Jimin sighed, I'm not made of glass. The monitor beeped. Jin gave him a look. Jimin corrected himself. Fine. I am currently a little bit made of glass, but come here anyway. Taehyung approached one side of the bed. Jungkook approached the other. Jimin looked at them both, and the room seemed to understand this was not a scene anyone else should control. Jimin spoke to Taehyung first. I'm angry at you. Taehyung nodded, eyes lowering. I know, not only because you didn't answer. Taehyung looked up. Jimin's voice trembled, but he kept it steady. Because part of me expected you to know that wasn't fair. I wanted you to understand my silence without me explaining it. I wanted you to fight through my distance but not be hurt by it. That was unfair to you. Taehyung shook his head, tears rising. Jimin, don't apologize for my mistake. I'm not taking your mistake. Jimin looked at him clearly. I'm nomming mine. Taehyung stopped. That was new, not blame traded back and forth but responsibility placed carefully where it belonged. Jimin continued, you were wrong to believe them before asking me. You were wrong to punish me with silence, but I was wrong to hide the truth and expect love to read my mind. Taehyung covered his mouth for a second then lowered it. I don't know if I can forgive myself. Jimin's eyes softened. That's not my job to fix tonight. Taehyung nodded, crying silently. But I want the chance to become someone you can trust again. Jimin looked at him for a long moment. Then don't ask me to trust you fast, ask me how to trust you honestly. Taehyung nodded again. How? Jimin's answer was quiet. Answer next time, even angry, even scared, answer. Taehyung broke. He bowed his head over Jimin's hand, not kissing it, not making it dramatic, just holding it carefully as he cried. I will. Jimin let him hold on for a moment, then turned to JUNGKOOK. JUNGKOOK looked terrified in a way he had not looked facing Han Min-seok or any public threat. Jimin saw it and spoke gently but without softening the truth. I'm angry at you too. JUNGKOOK nodded immediately. I know, you scared me tonight. JUNGKOOK's eyes closed. That was the one sentence he had dreaded most. Jimin continued, voice shaking. Not because I thought you would hurt me, because I saw how far you were willing to go without asking what I wanted. I know you love by standing in front, but sometimes when you stand too close I can't see anything else. JUNGKOOK opened his eyes, tears already there. I'm sorry. I know. I don't want to become another locked door. Jimin's face crumpled and he reached for him. JUNGKOOK took his hand, careful, almost afraid. Jimin squeezed weakly. Then don't decide alone even when you're afraid. JUNGKOOK swallowed hard. I'll try. Jimin's eyes narrowed slightly, the old firmness returning for half a second. No heroic vague answer, say it properly. A broken laugh escaped J-Hope from behind them, half sob, half relief. JUNGKOOK let out a shaky breath. I will ask you what you need before I act like I already know. Jimin nodded, tears sliding down his face. Good. JUNGKOOK lowered his head, holding Jimin's hand against his forehead for 1 second, not as a claim, not as a performance, but as surrender. I'm sorry you had to make a video to save me. Jimin's voice softened. I didn't save only you. JUNGKOOK looked up. Jimin's gaze moved around the room. I saved us from the version of tonight they wanted to write. RM stepped closer then, his face heavy with guilt. And we will make sure you never have to do that alone again. Jimin looked at him. You can't promise never, promise better. RM nodded, accepting the correction. Better, I promise better. Jin lifted a hand. I promise annoying, practical, food-based protection. Jimin actually smiled this time. That sounds believable. J-Hope wiped his tears. I promise I'll stop using smiles as bandages when something needs stitches. Suga looked at him with quiet warmth, then turned to Jimin. I promise I won't wait until proof becomes a body on a hospital bed. The room went still at that, but Jimin nodded. Taehyung whispered, I promise I'll answer. JUNGKOOK said quietly, I promise I'll ask. For a moment the hospital room was not healed, but it was honest. That honesty felt almost unfamiliar. Then RM placed the evidence drive on the bedside table where Jimin could see it. This is yours too, not to carry, to know we are carrying it with you. Jimin stared at the drive. Small, ordinary, heavy with everything that had almost destroyed them. What happens now? He asked. Suga answered, you rest, we deal with legal, we find Min-seok, we protect the raw files, we do not let the company bury hands roll, we identify the creative team access point, we verify the substance, we make sure the public story doesn't become member against member. Jin added, and you drink water. Jimin gave him a tired look. TAEHYUNG, non-negotiable. The members laughed softly, not because anything was funny enough, but because laughter had finally returned without being used to hide terror. JUNGKOOK helped adjust Jimin's blanket, then stopped and looked at him for permission. Jimin nodded. That small nod mattered. Taehyung watched it, then looked away with a soft, sad smile. J-Hope saw and placed a hand on Taehyung's back, careful of his shoulder. The gesture made Taehyung close his eyes. RM's phone buzzed again. Every head turned, tension rushing back like muscle memory. RM checked the screen and the color drained from his face. It's from external counsel. Suga stood immediately. What? RM read the message once, then again. JUNGKOOK's hand tightened near the blanket. Jimin's eyes sharpened despite exhaustion. Say it. RM looked at them and the piece they had just built trembled. They found Min-seok's last outgoing file transfer. Jin's smile vanished. J-Hope whispered to the media. RM shook his head slowly. No, Suga stepped closer. Then where? RM lifted his eyes to JUNGKOOK, then to Jimin, then to all of them. To a private archive labeled Disbandment Contingency. The room went completely silent. Jimin's fingers went cold in JUNGKOOK's hand. Taehyung straightened despite the pain in his shoulder. RM's voice dropped, and the archive is scheduled to open if all 7 members appear together publicly. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Because after everything they had survived, the next trap was not designed to separate them in private. It was designed to punish them the moment they stood together.